Chapter 1258. It feels so good to have my feet on the ground. The old Taoist sighed with emotion after he landed. Wang Sheng had the same feeling. In fact, even on Earth, humans could fly in the sky and dive in the sea, let alone in this spirit world. But when they carried out a mission, there would be unavoidable casualties that were not caused by the enemy. Wang Sheng had been on fighter jets and submarines. Every time he landed, he would have the same feeling. This world was slightly different. The old Taoist was not afraid of falling. But in the sea, the once invincible master seemed so weak and helpless. This was a ruthless blow to the old Taoist, but it was also a precious experience that alerted the old Taoist. His feeling was actually a combination of both. He did not know what had happened in the land of mountains and valleys in the past few months. Wang Sheng did not care, nor did he want to. Why would Wang Sheng care about something that had nothing to do with him? The two of them flew all the way to the capital city on their flying mounts. In any case, he didn't need to take the crowded route. He just needed to take the most remote place. In addition, his flying mounts had all been upgraded, allowing him to fly even higher. He didn't need to alert any experts at all. He easily arrived at the Laojun Temple in the suburbs of the capital. The Grand Abbey Dean rushed over after hearing the news and was naturally surprised. The 4 flying demonic beasts had all been upgraded, and even Wang Sheng had reached the legendary realm. Where did the old Taoist and Wang Sheng go? What happened to them? The Grand Abbey Dean could see Wang Sheng's state at a glance, which was completely different from the ordinary legendary realm cultivators. How long had it been? Even the Grand Abbey Dean himself had been stuck in the 8th degree realm for a whole 20 years before he made rapid progress and rushed to the 10th degree realm. Now Wang Sheng had cultivated for less than 20 years, and he had recultivated during this period. Was he really that powerful? However, now is not the time to listen to Wang Sheng and the old Taoists talk about their experiences outside. Recently, something else had happened, and it was probably necessary to inform Wang Sheng. It wasn't a secret that the Laojun Monastery had received a batch of flying mounts. Recently, many people had been secretly watching the Laojun Temple. When Wang Sheng and the old Taoists took off with the flying demon beasts of the Laojun Temple, they must have been seen. Naturally, almost all the forces quickly found out that the Elder Supreme Lord had obtained a group of flying demonic beasts. Fortunately, the Laojun Temple was not the time when Wang Sheng's power was at its weakest. Even if there were some good things, he would still be afraid of others snatching them away. No one dared to snatch the Laojun Temple's things, and no one dared to have any ideas about the Laojun Temple. Ever since the old Taoist and Wang Sheng went to the Dai Kingdom's palace, no one had the guts to do so. Moreover, the Laojun Temple had flying demonic beasts that could appear above anyone's head at any time. At this time, who would dare to be disrespectful to the Laojun Temple? Although they were afraid, they still came to the Laojun Temple politely and respectfully asked about the origin of the flying mounts. Naturally, the Laojun Temple did not hide anything. It only told everyone that it had received a batch of surrendered beast tamers from the land of Shangyue. In the following days, the Laojun Temple became busy. Everyone invited some famous people who could speak to the Laojun Temple to lobby the Laojun Temple. They wanted to see if the Laojun Temple could publicize the cultivation and training methods of flying mounts. The convenience of flying mounts made all the vassal states extremely envious. When they were fighting with the state of Shangyue, they had never been able to obtain any living flying mounts, let alone beast tamers. Those guys were so brainwashed that they would either fly away or kill the flying mounts decisively and commit suicide once the situation was not right. Everyone had their own ideas, but they could not even get a single flying mount. Seeing that there were more than 10 flying mounts in the Laojun Temple with accompanying beast tamers, these guys immediately started thinking. If this was a secret of the Dao sect, the vassal states would not dare to have any ill intentions towards the Laojun Temple. However, wasn't this the Laojun Temple snatched from the land of Shangyue? Since it was the Shangyue kingdom's item, could everyone negotiate? All the vassal states were willing to buy it at a high price. Of course, the Grand Temple Master knew that it was Mei Er's spoils of war. Therefore, after a brief discussion with Mayor, he pushed the people from the vassal states to Mayor's side and asked them to negotiate with Mayor. The name used was naturally Mayor as the representative of the Laojun Temple for the negotiation. The vassal states did not expect the Laojun Temple to have such a move. If they were to negotiate with Mayor, they would definitely not get anything without losing a layer of skin. Left with no choice, they could only send their elders to negotiate with Mayor. Grand Temple Master, you're not kind enough to let Mayor be the bad guy. After understanding the situation, Wang Sheng teased the Grand Temple Master with a smile. Wang Sheng did not blame the Grand Temple Master. It was Mayor's item to begin with. Naturally, Mayor had to agree. The Grand Temple Master had given Mayor the representative of the Laojun Temple for the negotiation. In fact, he had already protected Mayor to a great extent. How could Wang Sheng not be satisfied? He was just taking this opportunity to communicate with the Grand Temple Master on an equal footing. For the Grand Temple Master, other than Wang Sheng, no one else could give him such a feeling of equality. The old Taoist was an elder. All the other Taoists, and even his senior and junior brothers, regarded him as their leader. Only Wang Sheng did not regard him as a leader, nor did he treat him as a junior or an elder. It was very comfortable to talk to him. This feeling allowed the Grand Temple Master to slowly release some of the emotions that had accumulated for a long time. It was also very beneficial to the Grand Temple Master's cultivation. This was directly related to the Laojun Temple. As for the others, they were not so closely related to the Laojun Temple. Due to the appearance of the map of the core area of the Land of Thousand Extremities drawn by Wang Sheng, the Shanhua land was beaten to the ground by the vassal states. Basically, except for some remote tribes in the deepest parts of the forest that even Zhu Xingxing did not control, the rest had been divided up by the vassal states. Everyone seemed to have benefited. Only the Xia Kingdom was suppressed within the borders of the Xia Kingdom. The 4 cities that Zhu Xingxing had taken over had not been recovered yet. They were still tightly controlled by the experts of the barbarian tribe of the Land of Tranquil Mountains. There were even several times when Xia wanted to mobilize their experts to take one of the cities, but they were delayed by various accidents. The Grand Temple Master said this with a smile. Both Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling soon knew that there must be a reason for this. Moreover, everyone had a tacit understanding that the other vassal states must be up to no good. After all, Xia had bought the map of the core area of the Land of Thousand Extremities for a year. Everyone also had a tacit understanding to try their best to hold Xia back from the rear. No matter how many experts Xia had, they would not dare to easily send all of them to the core area of the Land of Thousand Extremities. If they did not have enough people, they would not be able to find anything there. However, the last thing that the Grand Temple Master mentioned made Wang Sheng vigilant. Someone wanted to harm Rosa and the women in the Grand Temple Master. Chapter 1259. What's going on? Wang Sheng asked with a frown. Wang Sheng wasn't surprised that someone was targeting Mayor. Mayor controlled a fortune worth tens of billions, so it was normal for others to covet it. However, as long as Mayor stayed in the capital and was careful when she went out, there wouldn't be any problems. But Rosa and the girls in the Grand View Garden, who did they provoke? Someone actually had designs on them? Although Wang Sheng had used the profit from Dream Workshop on the girls, that didn't mean it belonged to Rosa and the girls. So if someone wanted money, they were definitely looking for the wrong person to target Rosa and the girls. Revenge? If they really had to point out who their enemies were, it would be the higher-ups of Victorious Return. However, the problem was that they didn't participate in the actual battle to destroy Victorious Return. So what hatred was there to talk about? As for being sent to Wang Sheng as a gift, there was even less of a grudge to speak of. If someone really wanted revenge, they should be looking for Wang Sheng. What was the point of looking for the girls in the Grand View Garden? No matter how he thought about it, it seemed the only explanation was that someone was after their beauty. As the professional supermodels of Dream Workshop, the girls could definitely be said to be famous for their beauty. However, apart from Wang Sheng and a few people from Duke Everlasting Sheng's mansion, only the female guests of Dream Workshop had seen their beauty. No one else had the chance. Where did you get the news? Wang Sheng asked patiently. The girls in the Grand View Garden didn't have much combat strength right now. After recultivating the eternal spring cultivation method, it was impossible for them to have any combat strength before reaching the legendary realm. They were very weak, so Duke Everlasting Shung's mansion had always protected them well. Someone actually had designs on them? Did they not want their lives anymore? There were a few female worshippers. The Grand Abbey Dean did not conceal the source of the information. He said to Wang Sheng, "Last time, according to your suggestion, we built a few rooms for the pilgrims to confide in and sent a group of eloquent disciples to hide in the rooms. After the pilgrims were enlightened, many people confided in them. A few of the disciples overheard a few female pilgrims saying that their husbands wanted to hit on Rosa. It's not one or two, it's a group. The so-called House of Confessions was a practice that Wang Sheng used as a reference for the Christian confession on earth. It was also tried out in the Taoist Laozi temple, and the effect was very good. This method of not exposing one's identity, but at the same time, one could pour out their worries or do something wrong in exchange for the Grand Supreme Elder's forgiveness. This caused a group of people to become devout devotees of the Grand Supreme Elder's temple. Because there was a soundproof array in the room, and it was dark inside, the person in charge of opening the cubicle did not know who the other party was. Not only that, there was also a sound-changing array inside, which greatly increased the security. No matter what was said inside, as long as one did not stupidly expose one's identity, no one would know who was speaking. The Grand Supreme Elder's temple also promised that no matter what one heard, one would know that it had never happened. Countless people had a dark side in their hearts that could not be dispelled. Now, the Grand Supreme Elder's temple specially used an entire hall as a window to pour one's heart. After some people tried it, they immediately got out of hand. When they had something on their mind and did not want to talk to someone else, they would come here. It had only been a few months, and most of the people who tried it were female pilgrims. It was normal. Wang Sheng had thought of such a situation from the beginning. Most men kept their matters to themselves, but women were most willing to talk to someone. There were some things that even best friends could not talk about, so the House of Confessions in the Grand Supreme Elder's temple immediately became the best choice. It's probably a group of nobles in the capital who are tempted. The Grand Supreme Elder explained to Wang Sheng, "After all, we can only guess, but at least we know that it should be the husbands of some of the VIPs in your dream house. They might want to gather and cause some trouble." If it was just some nobles in the capital, Wang Sheng would not be worried at all. As long as the emperor was still the emperor, everything would be fine. No matter how powerful the nobles in the capital were, could they be more powerful than the emperor? The Grand Supreme Elder obviously understood this, so he did not feel that it was urgent. He also did not think that those guys would succeed, so when he mentioned it to Wang Sheng, he did not express it in a very urgent manner. He just took it as a small warning to add some twists and turns to Wang Sheng's life. "Does Mayor know?" Wang Sheng asked out of curiosity. "I didn't tell her." The Grand Supreme Elder seemed surprised that Wang Sheng's first reaction was whether Mayan knew or not. Shouldn't this kind of thing be kept from the first madam? All right, I'll go back and pay more attention. Wang Sheng was speechless. He was speechless at the Grand Supreme Elder's surprise. "Old Taoist, do you want to go back to the capital with me?" Wang Sheng had more or less understood what had happened recently and was ready to return to Duke Chongqing's residence in the capital. He casually asked the Old Taoist. He had already gotten used to traveling with the Old Taoist. "I need to go into seclusion to digest for a period of time." To Wang Sheng's surprise, the Old Taoist did not want to travel with Wang Sheng again. He directly shook his head and rejected Wang Sheng. "With your current cultivation, you don't have to worry about anything anymore." Among the true legendary peak, the only ones who could deal with Wang Sheng were the 3 royal high priests and Uncle Li. In terms of combat experience, Wang Sheng was definitely not inferior to anyone. Even the Old Taoist was ashamed of his inferiority. Would Wang Sheng still need the Old Taoist to protect him? Upon realizing this, Wang Sheng smiled and no longer insisted on the matter. After bidding farewell to the Old Taoist and the Grand Supreme Elder, Wang Sheng did not ride the flying mount to attract attention. He simply asked the Grand Supreme Elder to find a horse and slowly returned to the city. The flying mount was such a big target that the people watching nearby would definitely have seen it. Therefore, many people would naturally have seen Wang Sheng's return to the capital. The old Taoist did not care about his whereabouts being known, and neither did Wang Sheng. After rejecting the Grand Supreme Elder's kind offer to send people to escort him, Wang Sheng rode the horse slowly back to the city. At this speed, he would be able to reach the capital by dusk at the latest. However, Wang Sheng had still underestimated his attractiveness to some people. Wang Sheng knew too many things. So many that people from any power would want to control Wang Sheng and enjoy the exclusive rights to the secrets that Wang Sheng knew. Wang Sheng had only walked halfway when a wry smile appeared on his face. Every movement in the surroundings was transmitted to Wang Sheng's ears. Wang Sheng could clearly hear how many people were breathing and how many people were holding their breaths. Even Wang Sheng knew how close they were and where they were. How meticulous was this plan? It would take Wang Sheng at most 3 hours to return, but someone had already organized so many experts to ambush him. It was obvious that this person had been planning this for a long time. Did they not remember the lesson that the Gan family had taught them? I actually don't want to cause trouble. Wang Sheng smiled bitterly and muttered to himself. I don't like killing people either. Don't force me. Chapter 1260. Many people heard Wang Sheng's words, but everyone who heard this sentence wanted to laugh. Wang Sheng did not like to kill people. Since the beginning, when Wang Sheng was chased by the major families, the number of people who could be counted as Wang Sheng's death was definitely more than 2,000. This was called not liking to kill people. Then what was liking to kill people? However, since Wang Sheng dared to pass by alone, then he shouldn't blame others for plotting against him. Who asked you to have the powerful Lao Jun Temple's bodyguard? You deserve to be captured alive by others. This idea was what all the people who participated in the ambush thought when they first launched it. But after a few minutes, those people all changed their minds. 23 experts of the legendary realm laid in ambush to deal with Wang Sheng alone. The route of the ambush and the timing of the attack were carefully designed. Within a radius of 10 miles, there were people secretly observing whether there were any experts secretly protecting Yishiwen. Only when there were no unusual movements would they feel at ease to attack. They thought that more than 20 people against one person would be a sure thing. But as soon as they made their move, these experts were dumbfounded. Wang Sheng was too terrifying, so terrifying that they couldn't believe their eyes. An expert came forward and punched Wang Sheng in the chest, but as a result, he was blasted away by Wang Sheng's punch. Under the collision of the two fists, the expert was directly sent flying several feet away. His hand bones, wrist bones, ulna bones, and knuckle bones were all broken. He lay on the ground and vomited blood, unconscious. Several experts who used knives and swords faced the short dagger in Wang Sheng's hand. No matter how intensive their attacks were, Wang Sheng only used a dagger to calmly block them. His movements were not fast at all, but they were very effective. It looked like he was lifting something heavy as if it was light. With a gentle stroke of the knife, 8 or 9 out of 10 people would lie down on the spot, unable to stand up. None of them died, but all of them had lost their combat effectiveness. Bystanders looked at it and felt that it was okay, but those who were cut by Wang Sheng's tiger teeth were full of horror. Their life force was rapidly draining from their bodies along with their blood. The cultivation that they had relied on to survive was now completely useless. Wang Sheng was using the military's killing techniques. Every stab was aimed at a fatal spot determined by modern medical anatomy. It was either the main artery or the place where the nerve plexus gathered. Wang Sheng was already being merciful by not killing him on the spot. However, this did not mean that Wang Sheng was soft-hearted. It was true that Wang Sheng did not like to kill, but someone was already in front of him. How could Wang Sheng let go? The only reason he kept them alive for the time being was because he wanted to know their identities. Those who had their arteries attacked could only press on their wounds in vain, hoping that their cultivation would be able to heal some of the damage. There was no longer any possibility for them to fight back. Unless they didn't want to live, but the slightest movement would cause their blood to spurt out like a fountain. Even without Wang Sheng's help, they would die from excessive blood loss. Wang Sheng's movements were really very simple, so simple that it was unbelievable. His movements were slow, but no matter who the opponent's attack was, it would be deviated before it reached the body. He could easily counterattack, but it was so helpless that it could not be avoided at all. 4 or 5 people had their arms and knees twisted by Wang Sheng. Now, the guy whose face was grabbed by Wang Sheng with one hand had completely given up resisting. In fact, he had already passed out. That's right, when this expert swordsman attacked, Wang Sheng just happened to dodge the tip of his sword. With a backhand grab, he grabbed the man's face and pinched his cheekbones. With a little bit of force, the cheekbones made a cracking sound, and the enemy who was grabbed lost consciousness. His whole body hung from Wang Sheng's hand. If the old Taoist saw this scene, he would definitely be very satisfied, because Wang Sheng had applied the technique of Tai Chi to the killing techniques of the military, and the combination was seamless. His whole body seemed to be lifting heavy things as if it was light. None of his moves looked very ruthless, but the effect was without smoke and fire. At first, the experts who were lying in ambush did not feel that it was very magical. But when more than a dozen experts successively all fell in the hands of Wang Sheng so easily, the remaining 7 or 8 experts immediately realized that something was wrong. Even if it was an evenly matched opponent, it was impossible to win so easily, not to mention Wang Sheng, whose cultivation was not as good as theirs. This situation could only mean one thing, and that was that Wang Sheng's cultivation was far higher than theirs. That was why he could be so relaxed, as if there was no one there. Apart from that, there was no other possibility. It was very normal to kill enemies of a higher level, but you could kill 1, 2, 3 enemies of a higher level. But to face the attacks of more than 20 experts at the same time and still be able to divide the priority and defeat them in batches, how could an expert with a lower cultivation be able to kill enemies of a higher level? How stupid did one have to be to think so? After realizing this, the rest of them were dumbfounded. More than 20 experts ambushed Wang Sheng, but now they discovered that Wang Sheng's cultivation was far higher than theirs. The ambushed and cooked ducks suddenly turned into a deadly Tyrannosaurus Rex. What kind of feeling was this? The experts at the back stopped in their tracks and looked at each other. The eyes of the 2 experts at the back suddenly had a hint of ruthlessness in them. The 4 or 5 experts in front suddenly rushed towards Wang Sheng from several directions. While holding Wang Sheng back, the 2 experts at the back who exchanged glances quickly used their fastest movement skills to rush to the side of their companions who had already been knocked down. Wang Sheng did not care at first. If the other party wanted to save people, then let them save them. Anyway, if they were saved, they would not be able to move, and they could not take 1 or 2 people away. So, Wang Sheng was not worried at all. However, when these 2 experts began to use the fastest method to kill their companions, Wang Sheng finally understood the plan of these 2 guys. They did not want to save people at all, but to silence them. Once these injured people fell into the hands of Wang Sheng, then no matter how stone-hearted they were, there would still be times when they would slip up. If they accidentally revealed the mastermind's identity and their own identity, it might bring disaster to the mastermind behind them. No one dared to take this risk. Wang Sheng was slightly surprised, but then he calmed down. So be it. Anyway, Wang Sheng did not think of leaving those people alive. Since these guys dared to make a move, and they did it under the circumstances of the Gone family's mistakes, how could they not be prepared? Wang Sheng firmly believed that even if all of them were captured alive, there would not be anything on them that could represent their identities. I really don't like to kill people. As Wang Sheng spoke, he pressed the last expert in front of him directly against a big tree on the side of the road. The expert's head was soft like mud. It turned into a piece, and red and white blood flowed continuously. Chapter 1261. The 2 experts responsible for silencing Wang Sheng had done their best to kill off a few of their hopeless companions. When they saw how easily Wang Sheng had killed off the last few companions, they no longer dared to waste any more time. With a whistle, they frantically fled in 2 different directions with all their might. Bang! When the first sound of the bowstring rang out, The expert who heard the sound of the bowstring while running knew that it was impossible for his other companion to leave alive. Bang! As soon as this thought came to his mind, the sound of an explosion came from there. Anyone who had a deep understanding of Wang Sheng would know that the heavy sniper crossbow in Wang Sheng's hands was definitely not something to be trifled with. From the faint sound of the wind coming from the Linglong pavilion, the arrow fired by the heavy sniper crossbow was actually faster than the sound. Before the sound of the bowstring could be heard, the heavy arrow had already hit the target. Being able to hear the bowstring meant that Wang Sheng's target was not him. While the surviving expert was feeling lucky, he quickly sped up and ran into the distance. In his shallow understanding, dealing with a bow and arrow, as long as he could avoid the direction of the incoming arrow in time, then this period of time would be enough for him to escape the range of the bow and arrow. Of course, the reason why he was so sure was that there was a dense forest not far ahead. As long as he could escape into the dense forest, no matter how powerful Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was, it would not be able to hit him. Unfortunately, none of the surviving experts had learned how to change their direction and run at different speeds to deal with snipers. In Wang Sheng's eyes, the difference between him running at a constant speed and a stationary target was only a 10% increase in difficulty. Bang! Bang! Two continuous sounds rang in Wang Sheng's ears. Only 10 steps away from the dense forest, the last expert who had escaped had become a headless corpse. Because of inertia, the corpse ran forward a few steps before completely falling down. The place where it fell was already at the edge of the dense forest. 23 legendary experts had ambushed Wang Sheng, and now there were only 3 left. One of them had his cheekbones crushed, but he was still breathing. Another one was bleeding from his femoral artery and was lying on the ground half dead. Another one had both his arms broken and one leg broken. But in terms of injuries, he was the one with the lightest injuries. Wang Sheng looked at the one who was bleeding from the femoral artery. He was already unconscious, and his pupils were showing signs of dilation. It was obvious that he could not be saved. Shaking his head, Zhang Xian casually snapped his neck. Rather than waiting for death, he might as well be quick. His decisive action caused the expert, who was leaning against a rock with multiple fractures, to feel his heart skip a beat. When he saw that Wang Sheng was looking in his direction, his face suddenly revealed a trace of a strange smile. Then, without thinking, he gritted his teeth and fiercely knocked his head back. Pong! His head fiercely collided with the rock. Moreover, without the protection of spiritual qi, the result was that he instantly turned into a broken bloody gourd. Death warriors! Wang Sheng's eyebrows twitched. These guys didn't care about their own lives at all. They only wanted to complete their mission. As soon as they saw that they had completely failed, they immediately committed suicide without hesitation. How decisive! Now, the only survivor was the guy whose cheekbones had been crushed by Wang Sheng and who was still unconscious. Wang Sheng went over and said nothing. A powerful spiritual liquid directly poured into the guy's body. The spiritual qi in the guy's body could not be expelled, but Wang Sheng could follow the guy's spiritual qi to find the guy's acupuncture points. With a few casual movements, at least half of the guy's acupuncture points had been burst by Wang Sheng's spiritual liquid. The burst of the acupuncture points meant that the spiritual qi could not be mobilized. Only the physical strength was left, and Wang Sheng could easily control the guy. While he was unconscious, Wang Sheng pinched his mouth open and checked whether there were any poisonous teeth. After touching around the collar and cuffs and finding no poisonous needles, Wang Sheng tried to wake the guy up. A ball of water appeared above the guy's head without warning. With a splash, the water poured on the guy's head. The guy twisted a few times, then coughed and woke up. Who wants to touch me? Wang Sheng easily pressed the guy to the ground with one hand. He didn't care whether the guy was comfortable or not. Wang Sheng asked coldly. Song family. The guy struggled for a while. Seeing that he had no strength to resist, he spat out the name of a force. Because his cheekbones were crushed, his face was badly deformed. Even his voice sounded like it was leaking air when he spoke. I'll give you another chance. Wang Sheng smiled and said to the guy, Actually, it's Tang family. Unexpectedly, the The guy cooperated and spat out another name. However, when the deformed face wanted to show a smile, what Wang Sheng saw was a scary face like a ghost face. Even the twitching of the man's cheekbones when he tried to smile could be seen clearly. To be honest, I admire people who are not afraid of death. Wang Sheng shook his head regrettably and said to the man with the weird smile, "But you must believe me. I have a million ways to make you spill everything you know." Die family. It's really die family. The guy seemed to be frightened. His eyes showed a sense of fear before he spat out another answer. Although the guy put up a good performance, the sneer deep in his eyes couldn't escape Wang Sheng's eyes. Wang Sheng understood that the answer was just a casual remark from the guy. Judging from the current situation, any of the 8 vassal states might send someone to ambush him. Even the smaller vassal states might send someone to ambush him. Whoever could capture Wang Sheng would be able to enjoy all the secrets. The temptation would surely move many. Why don't you try using the truth pill? Seeing that Wang Sheng was still shaking his head slowly, the guy laughed weirdly again. The muscles on his face pulled at his bones, making him feel even more painful. However, he was still laughing and even gave Wang Sheng a suggestion that sounded very feasible. "Forget it." Wang Sheng smiled and shook his head. "It's not easy for you. I'll give you a quick death." Since this guy dared to make such a suggestion, he must be fearless. Wang Sheng really wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. This was very possible. Some families secretly train men of sacrifice who had nothing to do with the family since they were young. They only cared about cultivation and missions. No matter how they interrogated them, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of them. Obviously, this guy was such a person. "Thank you." Hearing that Wang Sheng was willing to give him a quick death, the guy actually endured the pain and thanked Wang Sheng. "You're welcome." Wang Sheng smiled speechlessly. He exerted force in his hand and easily broke the neck of the man of sacrifice. Since he couldn't get anything out of him, there was no need to torture him. Wang Sheng wasn't the kind of person to drag his feet. Wang Sheng carefully searched the corpses on the ground. These guys were really clean. Their clothes and weapons were all his common goods. He couldn't find any trace of which family they belonged to. It seemed like the Gone family's manager had taught them a lesson. Chapter 1262. Since he could not get anything from these people, Wang Sheng shook his head and continued on his way. The horse he was riding was still fine when he arrived. Before launching the attack, Wang Sheng had already jumped off the horse and chased it to the side. The battle did not damage the horse at all. In fact, Wang Sheng was deliberately testing his combat skills. Otherwise, there would be no need for any moves at all. Wang Sheng's powerful strength and powerful spirit liquid would be enough for him to kill them easily, just like how the 3 great consecrators killed those peak legendary experts during the Royal Rebellion. When one's strength reached a certain level, all skills and moves would be useless. However, Wang Sheng was still adapting and did not want to waste the skills he had learned. Hence, he fought like this. This was also a very difficult adaptation process, because at this point, one would find that what he had learned in the past seemed to be completely useless. Many things that seemed unimaginable in the past could now be done with just a stretch of his hand. Opponents that he could not defeat with all his strength in the past could now be crushed to death with a little finger. In terms of cognition, there would be a huge deviation. This was the reason why the old Taoist did not give Wang Sheng pointers at this time to move forward. Wang Sheng was faced with a choice. Should he choose to rely on his powerful strength to fight the enemy? Or should he continue to use his previous skills to fight the enemy and embarrass himself? This was something that Wang Sheng had to decide for himself. Of course, this was just a simple way of putting it. In fact, there were many choices ahead, so many that it was enough to completely throw away everything that he had learned in the past few decades and start from scratch. This was also why the old Taoist said that he had just laid the foundation, and that the real learning and cultivation were still to come. It would be good to try it out on the way. Wang Sheng did not ruin his good mood because of the ambush. After killing the enemy, he still leisurely returned to the city. As for the dead bodies on the ground, the main family that was sent out probably would not care about it. They could only wait for the capital city guards to clean up. When Wang Sheng's figure appeared at the gates of the capital on horseback, Countless spies had already begun to frantically send news. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, Wang Sheng rode his horse and swaggered into the city. Following the recently repaired main road in Lizhen Lane, he entered the inner city and rushed to Chongqing Duke Fu. It was already dusk. Perhaps they had already received the news long ago. All the beauties in the entire Grandview Garden were there, neatly lined up at the gate and in the front yard. Seeing Wang Sheng come in, all the women bowed to Wang Sheng. "Welcome back, master." A group of stunningly beautiful women dressed in a variety of trendy clothes, perfectly accentuating the lines of their bodies, coupled with meticulously applied makeup on their perfect faces, as well as the alluring voices of the victorious return palace. It was unknown just how many people they had chosen from. What they brought to Wang Sheng wasn't just a mere sensory stimulation. Every beauty welcomed Wang Sheng's return from the bottom of their hearts. The feeling of having someone at home thinking about them was really good. Wang Sheng smiled and returned everyone's greetings. Together, they returned to the Grandview Garden. Who knew how many people who heard this scene felt sad and shed tears? There were so many supermodel-level beauties, but all of them were occupied by this guy, Wang Sheng. What a reckless waste of God's gifts. Mayor and Rosa hadn't returned yet. They didn't know that Wang Sheng would return today. It just so happened that a batch of relatively important goods had been sent to the warehouse, but there were some flaws. Mayor and Rosa had rushed to deal with it and hadn't returned yet. However, they would definitely get the news soon and would definitely rush back in the evening. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had stayed at sea for several months. After leaving the Kingdom of Song, they hadn't had a good bath. Although they would always use fresh water to wash themselves every time they went ashore, the amount of fresh water they brought was limited. Moreover, there were only 2 men, so they didn't pay much attention to it. They just washed the salt away quickly. When they returned home, they could finally have a good hot bath. Just as Wang Sheng said this, he was pushed into the huge bathroom by a few beauties. More than a dozen beauties helped Wang Sheng change his clothes. Then, they put on a thin gauze and helped Wang Sheng take a bath. In the past, Wang Sheng wasn't used to this. But now, Wang Sheng didn't reject this kind of enjoyment. Habit was a rather terrifying force. It could fundamentally change a person's views, thoughts, and practices. At least now, Wang Sheng could lie on the thighs of beauties with a clear conscience. He didn't even need to move his hands. He could enjoy the bathing and massage of several beauties without blushing. If someone saw this scene, they would probably vomit blood in jealousy. Wang Sheng was lying on the naked thighs of a beauty. At the same time, that beauty was helping Wang Sheng wash his face gently. Beside him, a person was carefully washing Wang Sheng's hair. Wang Sheng's limbs were basically placed on the legs of a beauty, allowing her to massage him. Not far away, another beauty was slowly wiping Wang Sheng's hair with a razor made of top-grade gold crystal. Another beauty was carefully applying the lather. This feeling was not any different from Tianzi. After more than an hour, Wang Sheng's hair was carefully washed one by one. The dirt under his fingernails was neatly trimmed by the beauty with a delicate knife. The beard on his chin and face were also shaved. He changed into a set of home robes that were specially made for Wang Sheng by several women. His entire appearance immediately changed. Wang Sheng, who had just returned from the sea, still had the salty smell of the sea salt particles in his hair, and an unshaven beard had completely changed into a new image. When Wang Sheng reappeared with a fragrant body, all the women cheered in unison. After advancing to the peak of the legendary realm, Wang Sheng's temperament had once again changed. His aura was restrained, gentle like jade, but did not lose the bearing of a marquis. It made people have a feeling of wanting to get close to him. People who had a normal relationship with him were already like this, not to mention the women of Grandview Garden who had long been loyal to Wang Sheng. When they looked at Wang Sheng, all of them had peach blossom eyes. They wished they could just throw themselves into Wang Sheng's arms and never get up again. Unfortunately, although everyone had this thought, no one did this. Just when the women were intoxicated, Wang Sheng frowned. Why was there a disturbance outside the gate of Duke Chongqing's residence? After listening attentively, Wang Sheng's face changed and he shouted, "Prepare the operating table. Prepare the medicine." After leaving this sentence, Wang Sheng's figure was like an arrow that left the bow. He directly rushed out of Grandview Garden and flew outside the gate of Duke Chongqing's residence. All the women were shocked and did not know what was going on. With their current cultivation realm, they had no combat power at all. Naturally, they did not know what was going on outside, but they still followed Wang Sheng's instructions and quickly prepared. Wang Sheng had already rushed to the entrance of the mansion. What greeted him was Mayor, who was covered in blood, and Rose, who was also covered in blood, but unconscious beside her. Chapter 1263. Boom! Wang Sheng's brain seemed to have ignited a bomb and instantly expanded. Who dared to hurt Mei? Who dared to hurt Rosa? Did they not want their lives anymore? However, this anger was instantly suppressed by Wang Sheng. Mei and Rosa were covered in blood, and so were the surrounding guards. The urgent matter was not to find the murderer, but to save Mei and Rosa, and to save these loyal guards. The 7-word formula was recited continuously. Although he only had half the proficiency, the 7-word formula was still better than the 6-word formula. Wang Sheng did it on everyone. Those with lighter injuries almost instantly felt that their internal injuries were recovering rapidly. "Master, quickly save Rosa." When Mei saw Wang Sheng, she had no time to be surprised or anything else. She felt a warm current surging in her body when she felt Wang Sheng's mouth open a few times. Her whole body felt comfortable. She immediately seemed to have found her backbone and cried anxiously to Wang Sheng. At this time, Wang Sheng realized that although Mei-er's body was covered in blood, Mei-er was not injured. The blood on her body was almost all Rose's. Rose's condition was very bad. She was vomiting blood. Half of her face and neck were full of blood. There was also a hole in her body. A long sword was still stuck in Rose's body and was not pulled out. At this moment, Rosa was already on the verge of death. She was inhaling more than she was exhaling. Wang Sheng grabbed Rosa's hand and quickly transferred a stream of spiritual energy to her. This time, he was not interrogating the killer and using the spiritual liquid to burst her acupuncture points. Instead, he was examining her internal injuries. The spiritual energy quickly circulated in Rosa's body, and Wang Sheng's heart sank. Rosa's condition was far worse than what the naked eye could see. Her internal organs were all injured, probably caused by someone's spiritual energy attack. The 7-word formula was used crazily on Rosa. With the army formula and the fighter formula, which were mainly for recovery, and a few other auxiliary formulas, he desperately used them on Rosa. There were a few combinations that Wang Sheng was not familiar with, so he simply changed them to the 6-word formula that he had completely mastered. In less than 2 minutes, Wang Sheng had used it on Rosa no less than 100 times. As he used it, Wang Sheng carried Rosa and walked into the house. Of course, he did not forget to give Steward Wang a look, asking him to take care of the guards who were also injured. Just now, Wang Sheng had already examined the surroundings. Among the people who came back, Rosa's injuries were the most serious. Some of the guards were seriously injured, but Wang Sheng's 7-word formula had stabilized them. As long as there were enough healing elixirs, it would not take long for them to slowly recover. But Rosa could not wait any longer. "Master, quickly heal Rosa." Mei followed beside Wang Sheng and cried to Wang Sheng, "Rosa was injured by those thieves because she tried to save me. Master, you must heal her." For the time being, Wang Sheng did not know who the culprit was. He only knew that Rosa was so seriously injured because she tried to save Mei. More than a dozen guards who were responsible for protecting Mei and Rosa had died, and the rest were all injured. One could not say that they did not try their best. Even after more than 106-word formulas and 7-word formulas, Rosa's injuries did not get better. They were only stabilized and did not worsen. But Wang Sheng knew that Rosa was already in a very dangerous situation. That long sword had pierced through her chest. If he did not take it out to stop the bleeding, No matter how powerful Wang Sheng was, Rosa would still die. The good news was that even though the long sword had pierced through Rosa's chest, it did not hurt her heart. It only pierced through her lungs. The bad news was that Rosa's 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all injured by the spiritual energy. She kept vomiting blood, and her internal organs were also slowly deteriorating. The 6-word formulas and 7-word formulas could activate the potential of the injured person's body to quickly repair the damage to the body. But this was based on the situation where the injured person still had potential to live. Now that Rosa's life was almost at its end, where would she find the potential to repair her body? Everything had been prepared according to Wang Sheng's instructions. A snow-white bedsheet and a row of sterilized surgical instruments. Outsiders would definitely not know what was going on if they saw it. The moment they entered, Wang Sheng placed Rosa horizontally on the operating table. A few sisters who had learned how to treat and bandage wounds were waiting here. They were dressed in white nurse uniforms and were ready to go. When they saw Rosa's condition, they were all shocked. But after a careful examination, all of them revealed a sorrowful expression. "Master, Sister Rosa can't be saved." A beautiful nurse who looked more authoritative reported to Wang Sheng after exchanging opinions with everyone. Just as she finished speaking, she could not help but cry. "Impossible." Wang Sheng shook his head and looked at the dying Rosa. "Get ready to pull out the sword and bandage the wound." The few women could not bear to see Wang Sheng's sorrow, but they still made preparations according to Wang Sheng's orders. Wang Sheng's determination was unwavering. After performing the 6-word formulas a few more times, he gave the few women a signal. Then he grabbed the hilt of the sword and pulled it out as fast as he could. As soon as the sword was pulled out, it was as if 2 dragon heads had popped out from the front and back of the body. Blood flowed out crazily. At this moment, Wang Sheng did not care about disinfecting the wound. He directly took 2 hemostatic forceps and inserted them into Rosa's wound. With the help of the spiritual energy that had been transferred into Rosa's body, he accurately clamped onto the bleeding artery. The amount of blood loss was immediately reduced. "Master, Sister Rosa's heartbeat is getting weaker and weaker." After all, she had lost too much blood before. Although Wang Sheng clamped onto the bleeding point of the wound, Rosa's heart could not take it anymore and was getting slower and slower. The beautiful woman who had been taking Rosa's pulse exclaimed to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng flipped Rosa's eyelids. It was not good. Rosa's pupils were also showing signs of dissipating. Mayer watched from a distance with tears in her eyes. A few beautiful nurses by the operating table were also working with tears in their eyes. In their hearts, Rosa was really hopeless. "Don't give up, Rosa!" Wang Sheng shouted at the unconscious Rosa. At the same time, he was reminding the women. After shouting, a sealed plastic syringe appeared in Wang Sheng's hand. This was one of the 3 first-aid syringes that came to this world with the equipment warehouse. After quickly opening it, Wang Sheng decisively inserted the needle into Rosa's body. The advanced first-aid syringes of the special forces that Wang Sheng was in were made of unknown materials. For the soldiers on a mission, when they were seriously injured and lost the ability to fight, a syringe could allow a special soldier who had temporarily lost the ability to fight to have a normal state for another 20 minutes. Whether it was used to kill the enemy or escape, it was the last life-saving measure. Obviously, there must be a high concentration of stimulants, sufficient adrenaline, and other unknown things in it that could enhance the vitality of people in a short time. Chapter 1264. Rosa was now lacking vitality, so Wang Sheng used this first aid injection to bring her vitality back first. As for other treatments, they would talk about it later. When going out on a mission, if one used an injection after killing the enemy or leaving the battle, if one could be treated within a day, 1 or 2 months later, one would still be alive and kicking. If 2 injections were used, unless one could be sent to the hospital within an hour, one could only wait for death. As for using 3 injections, sorry, that was a dead end. The 3rd syringe was basically used when waiting to perish together with the enemy. Although Wang Sheng has been in this world for 6 or 7 years, These injections have always been vacuum preserved and stored in the storage ring, so there was no need to worry about the problem of deterioration. After the injection, only 3 seconds later, Rosa, who had just been determined by the women to be incurable, suddenly let out a long moan, and then her whole body suddenly tightened on the operating table, as if there was an invisible rope lifting Rosa's body up. Her head and feet were still on the operating table, but her chest and abdomen were already hanging in the air. After a while, Rosa's body relaxed, and she lay flat on the operating table again. Seeing this scene, the women were directly shocked. How is this possible? Sister Rosa's vitality has been dissipated. How could she still have the strength to stand up on her own? But how can the situation in front of them be explained? What was the thing that Wang Sheng just took out and inserted into Sister Rosa's body? How could it have such a strong medicinal effect? It could drag people back from the edge of death. It was comparable to the legendary elixir of the past. Wang Sheng, on the other hand, was not surprised at all. A large dose of stimulants and adrenaline entered the body, and it was normal for the muscles of the whole body to be tense at the beginning. Seeing that Rosa's heartbeat was getting stronger and stronger, Wang Sheng did not dare to neglect and quickly took out the first aid kit. This was also an item from the equipment warehouse back then. There was a blood transfusion vein in it that Wang Sheng could use now. Rosa had lost too much blood, which was a fatal problem. Wang Sheng could give Rosa some life force first, and he could even stop the bleeding and have a follow-up perfect recuperation process. But the problem of blood loss must be solved. After disinfecting the needle in alcohol, Wang Sheng inserted the needle into the vein on his arm without hesitation and ordered a beautiful nurse beside him. Hold on. The beautiful nurse did not say anything and immediately followed Wang Sheng's instructions to hold the needle and part of the blood transfusion tube. Wang Sheng's veins were too easy to find. They had a low fat content, and a few of them could be seen with a little force. At the other end of the blood transfusion tube, Wang Sheng inserted it into Rosa's arm and also had someone fix it. Then, Wang Sheng activated his spiritual energy and slowly forced the blood in his body into Rosa's body. Wang Sheng did not know what blood type Rosa had, but Wang Sheng himself was type O, an omnipotent blood transfusion user. In such an urgent situation, he could not care about finding a blood donor compatible with Rosa's blood, so he directly used Wang Sheng's. While transfusing blood, Wang Sheng used the 6-word formula and the 7-word formula on himself and Rosa. He used it on himself to stimulate his body's hematopoietic function and quickly replenish his lost blood. If he used it on Rose, it would stabilize her current vitality and slowly heal her injured internal organs at the same time. At the same time, Wang Sheng's hands did not stop, and a series of extremely dexterous flying needles and stitches stitched up the wound, dazzling the people watching. The women were completely stunned. Who had ever seen a situation where a wound was stitched up like sewing clothes? Who had ever seen a way to replenish someone else's blood? Not to mention seeing it, they had never even thought about it. However, Sister Rosa's heartbeat was getting stronger and stronger, and the muscles in her body had strength. The bleeding from the wound was also rapidly subsiding, and her physical condition was getting better. Seeing that Wang Sheng's method could actually pull Sister Rosa back from the brink of death, it was simply amazing. However, no matter how curious they were, the women knew that this was not the best time to talk. Even if there was a big problem, they would wait until Sister Rosa was saved. Although the urgent blood transfusion was an expedient measure, it could not be denied that Wang Sheng's blood at the moment was quite different. The spiritual fluid contained in the blood of a master at the peak of the legendary realm. Even if it was diluted, when it entered the body of Sister Rosa, who was not even in the 8th stage, it still quickly replenished the lack of spiritual energy in her body. This came in with the blood, not the spiritual energy infused by Wang Sheng, but directly contained in the cells and could be completely absorbed by Rosa. It didn't take long for Rosa's complexion to begin to look better and better. Not only that, Rosa's heartbeat was no longer as weak as before. It began to slowly become stronger, and her breathing was also normal. Every breath seemed to be able to affect the injury of her lungs, making her twitch even in a coma. It was obviously very painful. Wang Sheng also noticed the strength of his blood. Not only did it not have a strong rejection reaction, but it could also bring such help to Rosa. Wang Sheng was very happy. While continuing to urge the blood to flow into Rosa's body, Wang Sheng used the 6 words formula and the 7 words formula to comb through Rosa's body, especially the injury of her lungs, to stimulate the injury to heal as soon as possible so that it would no longer be so painful. Of course, it was not unlimited blood pumping into Rosa's body, but continuous blood transfusion. Otherwise, Rosa would not be able to withstand the sudden increase of strong blood. Finally, after more than 40 minutes, Rosa's heartbeat and breathing had completely stabilized. The condition of her body had also greatly improved. At least in the eyes of the few beautiful nurses, Rosa's condition could be considered to be completely out of danger, and there was no need to worry about her life anymore. All right, her life is not in danger anymore. Seeing this, Wang Sheng also felt relieved. At this moment, Wang Sheng realized that he was a little dizzy, and he could not help but sway a little. The beautiful nurse at the side was quick to react and immediately supported Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng shook his head and pulled out the blood transfusion vessel. After using the 6 words formula on himself, he let the beautiful nurse support him and slowly sat on a chair at the back not far away. In the series of blood transfusions just now, Wang Sheng roughly gave Rosa close to 3,000 milliliters of blood. If it were a normal person, they would have already fainted. It was only because Wang Sheng's cultivation was high, and he used the 6 words formula and the 7 words formula from time to time that he did not faint. But in the eyes of the women, Wang Sheng's face was pale at the moment, and he looked like he was about to fall. In addition, they just saw with their own eyes that Wang Sheng forced his own blood into Rosa's body, and it was obvious that he had paid a great price. The women were distressed and wished that they could be in his place. Don't be silly. Your blood may not be able to make Rosa bear it. Wang Sheng dispelled the women's thoughts with one sentence. When I have time, I will explain to you. Now I want to have a good sleep. May you too have a good rest. When I wake up, I will seek justice for you. Chapter 1265. On the way back, he was ambushed and attacked. He had less than 2 hours of leisure after returning to the mansion, and then he immediately performed surgery on Rosa. Wang Sheng's day could be said to be quite full, so full that he had no time and energy to savor it, and completely fell into a deep sleep. No matter how strong his cultivation and the 6 words formula or the 7 words formula were, they could not compare to the deep sleep in repairing the spirit. Moreover, Wang Sheng had almost lost half of his blood in the blood transfusion. Under exhaustion, he did not even have time to ask why Mei and Rosa were attacked, and directly closed his eyes on the chair. The girls were shocked, and 2 of them rushed to feel his pulse. After a while, they breathed a sigh of relief. Wang Sheng had overexerted himself. Rather than saying that he fell asleep, it was better to say that he was in a protective coma. As long as he slept, there would be no problem. As for the loss, it was simple. Did Changsheng Duke's mansion not have strong tonics? Mei finally calmed down. She had returned to Changsheng Duke's mansion. If she was attacked again, then the 8 feudal lords and the emperor would probably become the laughing stock of the whole world. More than a dozen old Taoists of the Qing generation in Changsheng Duke's mansion had already been on guard in all directions of the mansion when Mei returned. At this time, anyone who dared to have a trace of hostility to Changsheng Duke's mansion would be destroyed. There was no need for the people in the mansion to take action. There were many people who were willing to make this good karma. After calming down, Mei immediately became the strong and powerful woman. She issued a series of orders, and the whole Changsheng Duke's mansion began to turn. Outside the city, countless people began to run through the night. The whole capital instantly felt like a storm was coming. The movement at the gate of Changsheng Duke's mansion could not be hidden, especially the team of bloody people who came in from the city gate. Many people did not know how many people saw it. That night, including the emperor of the imperial family, not many people from the forces could sleep. As soon as the emperor received the news, he sent Steward Zhou to Changshanggong Fu to inquire. At that time, Wang Sheng was rescuing Rosa, and Mayer was also watching from the side. Except for Steward Wang, no one received Steward Zhou. Steward Zhou was not angry because of this. Instead, he helped Steward Wang settle down the injured guards. He even learned a lot of things from the guards. After that, Steward Zhou first sent an attendant back to the palace to report to His Majesty, while he himself stayed at Duke Chongqing's residence. Nominally, he was waiting to see Duke Chongqing and the princess, but in fact, he wanted to stay in Duke Chongqing's mansion. All the big families had their own ulterior motives. From what they saw along the way, they judged how great the loss of Mayer was caused by the attack, and they guessed what kind of revenge methods would be used and what benefits each family could get from this matter. Countless people were racking their brains and thinking, waiting for further news to come. Usually, there was no movement, but it happened not earlier or later, but on the first day after Wang Sheng came back. It would be strange if this matter was not aimed at Wang Sheng. From the analysis of the situation, there was a 50% chance that Mayer was injured and that Rosa would definitely die. Countless people saw that Rosa's chest was penetrated by a sword, and she vomited so much blood, rushing back to the city from outside the city. After such a long time, even immortals could not save Rosa. Who or which force was provoking Wang Sheng? They even used such an extreme method to directly kill Wang Sheng's woman. Were they planning to directly fall out with him? Who did it? Countless people wanted to know the answer to this question. During the time when Wang Sheng was unconscious, countless people were also investigating this question. However, when the answer was revealed, the people of the major vassal states were very surprised. Was there such a good thing? God actually opened his eyes and threw a pie on top of their heads? Contrary to the major vassal states, after knowing the result, the emperor in the palace was full of anger, and his whole body trembled because of anger. What does he want to do? What does he want to do? Not far away was the silent Her Majesty. Although she didn't say a word, her eyes were almost spewing fire. Within a few feet from her, people could feel Her Majesty's monstrous anger. Mayer was her biological daughter, who had been separated from her for more than 20 years. She had just been recognized, and someone couldn't tolerate her so much. At the entrance of the imperial study, head steward Li and old eunuch Shin stood there with their noses lowered. They chased away all the young eunuchs and palace maids that could be chased away, leaving only the two of them to personally serve the emperor. At the same time, they also activated a unique shielding technique to block all sound from the imperial study. If it was someone else who did it, no matter which force it was, the emperor was the only person in the capital who could legally mobilize the army to destroy the other party. Even if it was the 8 major vassal states, the emperor would definitely be able to take down the elders of the 8 major vassal states and all the people who lived in the capital. Then, he would behead them and send their heads to Wang Sheng's residence. However, the result of the investigation was that the one who did it was not someone else, but the royal family itself. Moreover, it was the 3rd prince whom the emperor was most optimistic about. The 1st prince, the 2nd prince, and the 4th prince had been beheaded because of the 2nd prince's treason. The 7th prince was even earlier. At first, he wanted to forcibly occupy the residence that the emperor rewarded to Wang Sheng, but he was also beheaded by the emperor. Now the emperor had 5 sons, and the future heir would also be chosen from these 5. The 3rd prince was the one that the emperor was most optimistic about. Ever since the few traitors were killed, the 3rd prince often came to the palace to accompany the emperor in the name of visiting his father. This gave the emperor some warmth in his heart, and he also looked at the 3rd prince in a different light. In order to nurture him, the emperor did not hesitate to arrange some government affairs for the 3rd prince to participate in. This was enough to show that he thought highly of the 3rd prince. One must know that the emperor had arranged for the 3rd prince to cooperate with Li Zhenfang, which was a matter of reputation and benefits. As long as he followed Mayer, he would be able to earn a lot of money for the palace, and he would be able to increase his reputation. This kind of good thing was simply paving the way for the 3rd prince. There was no need for the 3rd prince to worry about it. As long as the 3rd prince followed the direction of Mayer, it would definitely be a great achievement in the eyes of the emperor. Then, the position of the crown prince would be at his fingertips. Was the third prince's brain filled with water? Or was he suddenly a fool? He actually dared to attack, may air outside the capital? Did you already know that he wanted to do this? The emperor was angry, but he had nowhere to vent his anger. He directly shouted at Manager Li and Old Shun, who were standing at the entrance of the imperial study room. "Your Majesty, this servant doesn't dare." Manager Li and Old Shun didn't say anything else. They immediately kneeled on the ground and kowtowed. "Speak." The emperor was furious and ordered the two of them again. "This servant only knows that the third prince wanted to insert a few people into Li Zhanfang, but was rejected by the princess." Manager Li quickly reported, "As for the rest, this servant really doesn't know." Chapter 1266. Manager Li was the head steward of the palace's internal affairs. There were some things that he knew. However, old eunuch Shun was purely responsible for the emperor's safety. He didn't know these things at all. Hearing Manager Li's words, the emperor frowned on the spot. Placing people in Li Zhen Lane? Even the emperor had to be sneaky when he wanted to place people in Li Zhen Lane. Moreover, he could only place them on those unimportant guards and servants. Why did the third prince have to place people in there? Who does he want to place? Where are they located? The emperor suppressed the anger in his heart and asked Manager Li. He knew that Manager Li would definitely know. The third prince wants to place 5 people in there. Indeed, Manager Li knew. He knelt on the ground and quickly reported, "The head shopkeeper of Liz Hen Lane, the head shopkeeper of the treasury, and the head guard, Qian Xingyuan, and the head shopkeeper of Dream Lane are also there." Manager Li's voice became softer and softer. However, the few people in the imperial study room heard it clearly. The empress sneered. "How come I don't know that Li Zhen Lane, Qian Xingyuan, and Dream Workshop all belong to the royal family? His Third Highness wants to change the head shopkeeper, and he wants to change the head shopkeeper." How impressive! Not only the emperor, even the empress instantly understood the third prince's thoughts. The emperor could even understand his son's thoughts. He saw that Li Zhen Lane was making a lot of money. Thus, his eyes turned red, and he wanted to hold this huge amount of wealth in his hands. If it was only this thought, then it was completely normal. Not to mention the third prince, the emperor, and all the feudal vassals who didn't think so. It wasn't normal to think about it daily. The normal thing was to think about it day and night, and even dream about it. However, everyone knew that they could only think about it and couldn't do anything about it. When such a huge amount of wealth was independent, it would be a decisive force. The others were restrained by each other, and no one could make a move. On the contrary, Li Zhen Lane stood in the center of everyone's checks and balances. When it was time to get rich, it was time to get rich. The Son of Heaven sent the third prince to Li Zhen Lane because he had a selfish motive. He wanted the third prince to learn and understand the most profound knowledge of governing the world and helping the people. He didn't want the third prince to go there to be a lord. "Why didn't you report earlier?" Tianzi glared at General Manager Li. Since General Manager Li knew about this matter, he must be clear about the implications. Such a big matter, and General Manager Li actually didn't report it in time. It was definitely a dereliction of duty. "Your Majesty, this happened yesterday afternoon. The news was only sent to the palace last night." Manager Li hurriedly explained, "I received the news that Duke Chongsheng had returned to the Laojun Temple this morning. I have been paying attention to it. Who would have thought that such a shocking thing would happen in the afternoon? This servant is guilty." Compared to Wang Sheng's news, the third prince's news was clearly not a high priority. It was normal for the person in charge of distributing information to have priorities. But who would have thought that the third prince would take advantage of the opportunity when Mayor and Rosa were out of the city to kill her? Tianzi was having a headache and was very puzzled at the same time. The third prince had always been a gentle and honest person. How could he do such a thing? However, all the evidence pointed to the fact that it was the third prince who had arranged for it. There was no way to deny it. "Go and call Lao San here." Tianzi didn't understand how things developed to this stage. He remembered very clearly that when he arranged for the third prince to go to Li Zhenfang, He specifically told him to talk less and observe more. How did it become like this? Just as he finished this sentence, the empress who was beside him snorted coldly. Tianzi immediately changed his words. Go and kidnap Lao San for me. General Manager Li complied and got up to leave the imperial study. Tianzi sighed and helplessly turned to the empress. I'm going to see my daughter. The empress's face was cold. She stood up and walked out, ignoring the embarrassment on Tianzi's face. You better hope that Mayor isn't hurt. Otherwise, I don't mind leaving the palace with Mayor to live. Anyway, we have gold coins. We can live well anywhere. After that, the empress left the imperial study without looking back, leaving the emperor and old eunuch Shun in the study with a bitter smile. The empress left the palace in the middle of the night. Old eunuch Shun, of course, rushed to the door to make arrangements. When he returned to the imperial study, he saw Tianzi sitting alone angrily. In his anger, there seemed to be a trace of reluctance and sadness. Old eunuch Shun could understand Tianzi's thoughts. Tianzi must be sad about the third prince's misfortune and angry about his lack of ambition. It was a great situation, but he had personally turned it into a bad hand. Was there anything more saddening to the Son of Heaven? Looking at Tianzi's lonely figure, old eunuch Shun didn't dare to say anything. He quietly stood at the door, waiting for orders. In less than an hour, the third prince was captured by General Manager Li and his men. According to Tianzi's orders, he was tied up and brought to the imperial study. The third prince's residence was surrounded by the royal guards. Everyone in the residence was waiting for Tianzi's punishment. Father, father. Seeing Tianzi, the third prince cried and kneeled on the ground. He asked Tianzi repeatedly, "Why do you want to punish me like this?" "You don't know." Tianzi was so angry that he laughed. Such a big thing had happened. Even the feudal vassals who were far away should have received the news. Yet, the third prince didn't know why he was tied up. Could it be because of that lowly servant? The third prince wasn't a fool. Seeing that Tianzi was really going to punish him, he quickly asked, "Father, that lowly servant is just a merchant. Why does father care so much about her?" Just a merchant? Tianzi felt that something was wrong when he heard this. Since when did his third son have such an understanding? Tianzi couldn't help but ask the third prince, "Didn't I tell you to talk less and observe more when you are at Li Lane? Learn as much as possible?" Imperial father did mention these things. The third prince quickly replied, "I have been following father's instructions. I learned for 2 months and felt that I had learned something. That's why I wanted to test my skills." Test your skills? Tianzi once again heard something wrong from the third prince's words. When did I ask you to test your skills? Father really didn't have such a request. The third prince kneeled and didn't seem to realize his mistake. I just feel that if I only learn and don't do it, I won't be able to learn thoroughly. My teacher also supports me to try it out, so... Chapter 1267. Teacher. From the third prince's words, the emperor heard a new character and hurriedly asked, "Is it the teacher that I found for you, Grand Secretary Lin?" "Yes, father." The third prince quickly nodded and said, "In addition, there are also a few of Grand Secretary Lin's students who are also officials in the imperial court who are advising me. In addition, there are a few new scholars that I have hired who also have the same idea." "And who exactly are they? I really want to talk to them." Tianzi nodded his head and asked. The third prince didn't think there was any problem. He quickly listed out the names of Scholar Lin's students, as well as the names of a few university scholars. The emperor raised his head and glanced at Manager Li, who was at the door. Manager Li immediately understood. After bowing silently to the emperor, he quietly left. From the beginning to the end, the third prince didn't know when Manager Li left. What did they say? Tell me first. The emperor finally gave the third prince a good face. Under the emperor's signal, Old Shin also untied the third prince, allowing him to sit in the imperial study room and talk to the emperor. However, when Old Shin finished this, he sighed deeply in his heart. The third prince really read until he became stupid, or he was taught stupid by those scholars. What a pity. Another one. Li Zhenlane's profits are huge. Seeing that the emperor's attitude towards him had changed, the third prince thought that his explanation had been heard by the emperor. He suddenly became excited and quickly began to express his thoughts. I think that this kind of business that concerns the people of the world should be monopolized by the imperial court. The princess of Ning country is also a princess conferred by me. Her appearance should be considered as the name of the imperial court, right? The emperor didn't express his objection, nor did he agree. Instead, he followed the third prince's words and said, "What's more, this business of Li Zhenlane doesn't go out of the capital. The taxes that should be paid have been paid, and the business has been abiding by the rules. There hasn't been any improper behavior, right?" Father's words are wrong. When the third prince heard the emperor's words, he was even more excited. How can a second-class business that concerns the people of the country be controlled by a woman? Then who should control it? The emperor asked calmly, "You or your teachers?" Naturally, the important officials of the imperial court have priority. The third prince answered quickly without hesitation. He thought this was a test from the emperor, so he answered very seriously. "However, since the Li Zhenlane has shares in the royal family, it is naturally better for the royal family to control it. I've already discussed it with the elders of the imperial clan court, and they're willing to let me temporarily manage the Li Zhenlane." The elders of the imperial clan court also have the same idea? Tianzi was a little surprised. There was also the matter of the imperial clan court. The third prince had already hooked up with some people from the imperial clan court, but not a single person came to say a word to him, the emperor. Interesting. Yes, father. The third prince seemed to have considered this issue very thoroughly. He directly said what he thought. The elders also feel that this wealth is of great importance. It cannot be in the hands of a woman. The emperor could tell that he was targeted at mayor, but the real target should be the empress. Whether it was the Runzi lane, the Dream lane, or the Li Zhen lane, they were all cooperating with mayor in the name of the empress, not the royal family. Although the empress would generously give a large amount of income to the emperor every time, and the entire royal family also benefited from it, there were definitely people who were not satisfied with this. Tens of billions of gold coins, and they could only get a small share of it. How could this satisfy the royal family? It just so happened that the third prince was sent to the Li Zhen lane by the emperor. Wasn't this a great opportunity? First, they would learn the profit method of the Li Zhen lane, and then they could replace it. In the end, it was all about benefits. The emperor's cultivation of the royal meditation technique had already reached the legendary realm. How could he not understand the most fundamental reason? However, the more he understood, the more the emperor's heart burned. It was fine if they didn't know that Mayor was his own daughter, but they couldn't even tolerate the empress. The emperor couldn't help but wonder if it was because he didn't kill enough people in the past, so they had already forgotten that he had massacred a few families for the empress. Without batting an eyelid, the emperor once again asked in a negotiating tone, "You've only been there for 2 months. Are you sure you've learned the essence of the Li Zhen lane? What's so difficult about that?" The third prince laughed, and his face revealed a proud expression. "I dare not say that I'm a genius, but the business of the Li Zhen lane is really not difficult at all." "Then tell me, what have you learned?" The emperor seemed to be very pleased. At least the third prince said this. It meant that he had really learned something. The third prince was even more excited. He immediately began to explain to the emperor. It must be said that the third prince was indeed a smart and studious person. During the 2 months in the Li Zhen lane, he had indeed done his homework. The third prince was very familiar with the process of the Li Zhen lane. When the emperor asked him about a few details, he was able to answer them as if he was very familiar with them. When he asked about the business methods of the Li Zhen lane, the third prince was obviously not as confident. But to him, this was not a problem, because the methods of the Li Zhen lane looked too simple, so simple that it was a bit rough. Wasn't it just a low-interest loan, collecting a mortgage, and then slowly waiting for the customer to return the money? It was so simple, who wouldn't know? As for the business of gold notes, the third prince was the most passionate about it. In his mind, or in the eyes of his teachers, advisors, and members of the royal family, this business should be monopolized by the royal court. As long as they had the printing rights of the gold notes, Wouldn't they be able to have as many gold notes as they wanted? Anyway, the Li Jun Lane was backing them up, so no matter how many gold notes they had, they could still sell them. As for the series of real estate operations, such as buying and selling land and building houses, the third prince was very disdainful. These things required a lot of hard work. Not only did it require a lot of effort, but it was also not very profitable. The best location had already been sold, and it was impossible to find a better place to make a huge profit. In the eyes of the third prince, if Mayer cooperated, he could throw this part to Mayer. This would let her know that the royal family had been very kind to her. Then how long do you plan to use, and what methods do you plan to use to take over the Li Jun Lane? The emperor listened to all of this and did not express his opinion. Chapter 1268. The third prince really treated the emperor's words as a test. Previously, he was tied up in his sleep and brought to the imperial study. Now, he was asked to sit and answer questions in a pleasant manner. This change in treatment was sufficient to prove that his guess was correct. Since this was the case, the third prince, of course, had to do his best in front of the emperor. He had to explain his thoughts thoroughly and let the emperor know that he was not useless. I plan to use 3 steps. The third prince became excited and began to explain his plan and steps in detail to the emperor. First of all, we need to replace the shopkeeper of the Li Jun Lane with someone else. We also need to replace the shopkeeper of the treasury and the head guard with someone from the royal family. What next? The emperor was very cooperative. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry, but the third prince could clearly see a glimmer of light in the emperor's eyes. This glimmer of light was undoubtedly an encouragement to him. Next, we will wait for these shopkeepers to familiarize themselves with each other for a period of time. After roping in some people, we will arrange for people to replace the original old people. The third prince quickly explained his plan. He didn't even wait for the emperor to continue asking and said the next step of the plan, wait until the replacements are more or less done, and all of them are replaced by our own people. Then, we will have more or less control. In the end, Father, just give that lowly servant some rewards and ensure that she will be rich for the rest of her life. This Li Jun Lane will then completely fall into the hands of the royal family. Behind Mayer, there is still Duke Changshen. How do you plan to deal with Duke Changshen? The emperor did not know how to describe the third prince. His plan was so straightforward that even old eunuch Shun kept shaking his head at the entrance of the imperial study. How could he take over Li Jun Lane so easily? Did he really think that the 8 feudal lords were useless? Or did he really think that Duke Changshen would not dare to kill in the capital? Father, isn't it because of your grace that the barbarian can become Duke Changshen? The third prince said confidently, he can't even protect himself now. According to the analysis of my teachers, in a few months, I am afraid that he will not even be able to become Duke Changshen. Therefore, I feel that we need to prepare in advance to prevent him from doing something that will damage the royal family's reputation. What if he comes to fight? The emperor smiled and asked kindly, you also know that he's not alone. If he's willing to trade the map of the core of the grounds of Thousand Despair to the 8 great dukes for your head, what would you do? The third prince did not seem to have thought much about this. When he heard the emperor's question, he was dumbfounded. After a while, he said, a man cannot stand without his word. Since the 8 feudal vassals have already promised Imperial Father not to use force in the capital, why would they go back on their word? If word of this got out, wouldn't he become a laughing stock in the world? They definitely wouldn't make a move. As for that barbarian, if he wants to make a move, Imperial Father, immediately strip him of his title of Duke Changshen. The Li Jun Lane is already in the hands of the imperial family. He alone has no power and no gold. Won't he be at the mercy of others? A man cannot stand without faith. Well said. Tianzi nodded slightly and praised this sentence. Is this what your teachers taught you? Yes. The third prince was very proud. My teachers and senior brothers have taught me a lot. I am very grateful for their hard work. Then did they add anything to your plan? Tianzi still asked in a pleasant tone. At this moment, The emperor had already started to reflect on whether he had found the wrong person to teach the third prince. Scholar Lin was very knowledgeable. Before the third prince was a candidate for the crown prince, the third prince was not valued. Thus, the emperor found Scholar Lin to teach the third prince some principles of life. Not long ago, when he thought highly of the third prince, Scholar Lin had already taught the third prince for more than 10 years. It was not good to find a reason to replace him. To be able to become a scholar, Scholar Lin's knowledge was definitely not to be doubted. However, there was one thing that was common among scholars. They liked to talk. When they talked, their words were always shocking, but when it came to actual actions, they were always arrogant but weak. If he was just teaching an ordinary third prince, it would not be a problem. A prince trained like this would not have big ambitions and could be reassured in all aspects. He was the best candidate to teach. However, it was not enough for him to teach the third prince the way he did. For example, the third prince that they taught actually believed that the 8 feudal vassals had promised the emperor not to use force in the capital. It was an iron rule, and they would not break it again. How naive did one have to be in politics to have such a thought? Naive people could go study, but they should not get involved in politics. However, these people first saw the possibility of the third prince's meteoric rise in power, and then they saw the gold coins in Li Jinfeng. They really had a well-rounded hobby. These plans were originally discussed by me and a few teachers. The third prince said proudly, "Master Lin also gave me a lot of guidance." The elders of the imperial clan court did not criticize me, did they? The emperor asked again. The elders only supported my ideas, but they did not reach the point where they wanted to teach me, the third prince said respectfully. Didn't you try to arrange for a few head shopkeepers? What was the result? The emperor no longer had any hope for the third prince. A fool who was taught by a bookworm and a greedy bookworm. He was quite an intelligent person. How could he not see that it was useless to rely on a few scholars in this world? They did not know how to appreciate favors and dared to disrespect the imperial decree. When the third prince said this, his heart was filled with anger. In the capital, they did not even listen to me. This is clearly disrespecting the imperial decree and disrespecting it. This is treason and heresy. The teachers and I agreed that we should punish them as a warning to others. So you sent people outside the capital to kill Mayer? The emperor continued to ask calmly, not to kill that lowly servant. After all, it was father who personally conferred the title. Spare her life. The third prince shook his head and said, to teach her an unforgettable lesson. Only kill that lowly servant by her side, the head shopkeeper of the dream house. If she dies, we can properly arrange for the head shopkeeper to enter the dream house. The people of the imperial clan supported the third prince, but they were just watching the show from the side. The third prince thought that his and his teacher's plan was foolproof and decisively sent people to kill Mayer. Now, it seemed like he was already waiting for the harvest. One more question. The emperor took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He asked the third prince, "Who taught you this? Or what made you think that your orders are the imperial edicts, and that if others don't listen, they are disobeying the imperial edicts and disobeying the imperial edicts?" The third prince was only hot-headed from the flattery of his teachers, but he was not really stupid, especially when it came to imperial power. When he heard the emperor's question, he suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded and could not say a word. Chapter 1269. This was a small problem. It was nothing more than a prince showing off in front of a merchant. Relying on his identity as a prince, his words represented the will of the royal family, the will of the emperor and the imperial edict. If they dared to disobey, they would be disrespecting the imperial edict and disobeying the imperial edict. Of course, this kind of showing off was not a problem for ordinary people. The prince represented the will of the royal family and the imperial edict. Wasn't it perfectly justifiable? Who dared to speak out of turn? Even some influential officials would have to show respect and reverence to the imperial power when facing the princes, wouldn't they? However, this was a matter of course for commoners, but when it came to Wang Sheng and Mayer, it was a joke. Mayer did not treat him as a prince at all. She refused any excessive request. What a joke. Mayor was also a real princess, okay? Her biological mother was the empress. Wasn't she more noble than a prince born by an imperial concubine? Not to mention Mayer's attitude. The third prince's words were a taboo to the emperor. What was an imperial edict? It was the most important thing to the emperor. As long as an imperial edict was issued, it should be an order respected by the whole world. In order to protect the reputation of the emperor's edict, all the edicts he had issued over the years were for people to be promoted, conferred titles of nobility, and bestowed fiefs. This was also the reason why the feudal vassals did not have much conflict with the emperor's edict. It could be said that in order to protect the Son of Heaven's reputation, the Son of Heaven had suffered many grievances over the years. Only the three great masters, a few trusted ministers, and the empress knew about it. The third prince leisurely enjoyed his natural identity as a prince. How many people on the mainland knew about it? But as a prince, the third prince was very clear about the seriousness of the matter that his father, the current emperor, had just said. Why? I'm not dead yet, and I haven't passed the throne to you. You can't wait to issue an imperial edict? What are you thinking? If this matter was really investigated, it was very simple. The third prince's property would be confiscated, and he would be beheaded for a false imperial edict. The third prince finally knew why he was tied up and sent to the imperial study after the emperor asked this question. Of course, this was only what he thought. If it were any other prince, they would definitely think the same way, saying that his words were an imperial edict in front of the Son of Heaven. Wasn't this challenging the authority of the Son of Heaven? Passing down an imperial edict was treason. What was this? No emperor would allow such a thing to happen. While the third prince was greatly shocked, he hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. This child has only said this in front of Imperial Father. I have never said this in front of outsiders. The third prince was truly frightened. Since ancient times, as long as it involved the power of the monarch, there had never been any such thing as father and son. The father killed the son, and the son killed the father. It was simply too many to count. Whoever touched this high-voltage line would die. There are no exceptions. Your son has absolutely no intention of rebelling. Father. While kowtowing, the third prince cried. He didn't care about anything else. The fear of death had completely made him lose his mind. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. How could he say such words in front of his own father, the real Son of Heaven? Of course, the third prince would never see the expression in the Son of Heaven's eyes when he spoke, let alone think about it. Those words were his true thoughts. What he thought normally, he would say it at that moment without holding back. It was also because of this that he committed a huge taboo. The Son of Heaven would never reveal it to anyone. Ever since he reached the legendary realm, his meditation technique had a special ability that allowed him to hear the truth from the other party without batting an eyelid. However, this required the other party to not be on guard against him. It could only be used in that kind of natural situation. The third prince kept kowtowing. In just a short while, the third prince's forehead was already dripping with blood. However, the Son of Heaven didn't have any expression. His fingers gently tapped on the table rhythmically as if he was thinking about something. After a while, the Son of Heaven finally opened his mouth and asked, "If your plan succeeds, how much do your teachers intend to share?" Master Lin and the rest said that they would never dare to touch Lijun Lane. Even Moisturizing Lane and Dream Lane have the royal family's shares, so they will never interfere. When the third prince heard the Son of Heaven's question, his anxiety finally eased. He hurriedly replied to the Son of Heaven, "I promise that if the plan succeeds, I will hand Qian Xunyuan over to Master Lin and the rest." Master Lin and the rest also said that handing over such an elegant item to a female merchant is a disgrace to the culture. In the long run, who would be able to concentrate on learning? Therefore, we must never let these lowly people taint these elegant items with the stench of money. And the Son of Heaven didn't explain to the third prince that Qian Xunyuan was actually the real royal family's shares. He only wanted to know the thoughts of these scholars around the third prince so that he could confirm some of his own ideas. After thinking for a while, he asked, If we hand Qian Xingyuan over to them, how will they cooperate with the grandmasters of Linglong Pavilion? Don't tell me that you don't know that the real masterpieces are the works of grandmasters. Qian Xingyuan can't be controlled by a female merchant. Naturally, it can't be controlled by those who only have some strange skills. Until now, the third prince still didn't know why he so easily told the Son of Heaven what his teachers had said. He only said honestly, when the time comes, even Qian Xingyuan's current owner will have to bow down, not to mention some of the grandmasters of Linglong Pavilion. If they don't listen, we can just arrest them and charge them with crime. Then, we can make them produce masterpieces to atone for their crimes. This will also save us a lot of money. The Son of Heaven nodded. Now, he finally understood the nature of these so-called scholars. All of them talked about benevolence, righteousness, and morality, but in the face of power and wealth, they wished that they could grow 5 hands on their bodies. Robbing other people's businesses was so righteous. How could they come up with such a lofty reason? Women should not be in charge of the Lijian Lane. Lowly merchants, strange and obscene skills. In the end, only scholars like them are worthy of such things. If others didn't want to cooperate with them, they would be punished and sent to prison. They were even more ruthless than the 8 big clans. At least the 8 big clans left the royal family a way out. If these scholars really took over, the royal family would probably die without a burial place. Unfortunately, they were just a bunch of old haters who boasted about how invincible they were, pedantic people who couldn't see the big picture clearly. Without the corresponding strength, they wanted to rely on the third prince's power to take over Lijian Lane. What kind of sweet dream was that? Chapter 1270. Disappointed. The Son of Heaven was really disappointed. Originally, he thought that by letting Grand Secretary Lin teach the third prince knowledge and letting him go to Li Zhanfang to learn how to help the people, after a period of time, he would be able to see the big picture and slowly train him step by step according to the steps of training in air. What a pity! Since he let Grand Secretary Lin teach the third prince since he was young, the third prince had slowly been led astray. How stupid would he have to be to believe these people who only know how to talk and not do anything? Even if he believed them, he shouldn't believe them all at once, right? Could it be that there weren't any suitable aides around to help him analyze the situation in front of him? No, there was still a hidden story behind this matter. How many people did you send to kill Mayor? The Son of Heaven suddenly thought of something and immediately asked. I only gave the order to the guard commander in the residence. The actual execution was done by him. The third prince quickly replied, as for how many people were sent, I don't know. What was the result? The Son of Heaven asked again. Even if he didn't know the specific execution process, he should at least know the result, right? That Rosa will die without a doubt. Fortunately, the third prince finally knew the detailed result and quickly said there were also a dozen guards who were killed on the spot. Basically, the goal was achieved. They killed the shopkeeper of Dream Lane and scared that cheap maid. They didn't do much and immediately retreated after they succeeded. They didn't leave any traces behind. And at least they know that there must be a goal when they make a move. The Son of Heaven lightly nodded, which was a rare praise. But when he heard that they didn't leave any traces behind, the Son of Heaven was so angry that he directly picked up a pen holder from the desk and smashed it. That they didn't leave any traces behind. Then how did I know? Grand Secretary Lin was an old fox for so many years. How could it be so simple? It was easy for him to fool the third prince, but did he not know that if he touched Mei and Rosa, it would lead to Wang Sheng's counterattack? The emperor of the capital had killed 4 princes, and at least 2 of them had something to do with Wang Sheng. As long as they were a little smarter, they would know that the property and servants of the 4 princes who had died had all been sent to Wang Sheng's residence after their houses were confiscated. How could the third prince not know about this? How could Grand Scholar Lin and the others not know? However, third prince's film and television was fooled into thinking that Wang Sheng was not a threat and could be easily dealt with. Yes, Wang Sheng might face the counterattack of the major families in a few months, but so what? As long as Wang Sheng was willing to pledge allegiance, to any of the great vassals. Wang Sheng would be able to continue being his lord. Li Zhenfeng was simple. After learning for a few months, the third prince had only scratched the surface. Did he think that he could control Li Zhenlane without even touching it himself? How could a new manager be able to control Li Zhenlane? How naive would one have to be to think like that? If Scholar Lin and the others were not too naive, then they had other plans. As for the third prince, he was definitely the best scapegoat. Furthermore, he was a scapegoat that would make everyone else besides the royal family happy. But it was unknown whether this idea was the idea of Grand Scholar Lin or the idea of one or several people. At this time, Head Steward Li silently stood at the entrance of the imperial study. Obviously, the names that the third prince mentioned should have been invited to the palace by now. Someone bring him away. Find a place for him to sober up and eat something. The emperor ordered at the door. Old eunuch Shun did not say anything and brought the third prince out with his men. As he walked, he sighed in his heart. The third prince should just eat something. There would not be another chance in the future. Have they all been arrested? After everyone was sent away, Head Steward Li came in, and the emperor asked in a displeased tone. Head Steward Li shivered and hurriedly kneeled down to report. Your Majesty, Grand Scholar Lin has been arrested. However, 3 of the students are dead. 5 of the third prince's advisors had also died in their respective residences. The others have been arrested. Interrogate them carefully. The emperor nodded. It was normal for people to die. If they did not die, they would be abnormal. There were exactly 8 dead people. This number was really good. It was almost the same number as the 8 great vassals. Bring Grand Scholar Lin here. I will interrogate him personally. The emperor still wanted to hear Grand Scholar Lin's words personally. He wanted to know what Grand Scholar Lin was thinking. A scholar who had been famous for decades and was even a scholar in the imperial court should not be so shallow, right? Unfortunately, the emperor was destined to be disappointed. Grand Scholar Lin's performance was worse than he had imagined. Even though cultivation was still the most important thing in this world, Scholar Lin was not the only one who had found a way to benefit from learning, even though his cultivation was not high. Instead, there had been dozens of generations of people who had successfully developed a self-amusing theory that reading was the best of everything else. Because they had always been suppressed by those powerful cultivators, they longed for power and wealth more than ever. Once they had the chance, they would do anything to obtain it. For example, this time, Grand Scholar Lin and the third prince wanted to deal with Mayor. This was the main reason. Of course, Grand Scholar Lin was smart. He knew that he could not touch Li Zhenlane. Thus, in front of the third prince, he pretended that he was thinking for the third prince, the imperial court, and the emperor. But his real goal was Qian Xingyuan. Qian Xingyuan was a business worth hundreds of millions of gold coins a year. For Grand Scholar Lin, it was enough to satisfy his appetite. Grand Scholar Lin did not consider the grandmasters of the Pavilion of Delicacy so easily. Someone had secretly told him that they were confident in dealing with those grandmasters. However, the people who passed the message were his students and a few others around the third prince. Grand Scholar Lin did not hide their names and told the emperor everything he knew. Of course, he could not hide it either. Everything was a scheme, especially against Mayor this time. They had not intended to incite the third prince to make a move, but a few of Grand Scholar Lin's students acted out of character in the morning and incited the third prince to make a move. Scholar Lin didn't understand either, but someone on the other side gave him 1 million gold coins, so he agreed in a muddle-headed manner. In the afternoon, when he learned that Chongqing Duke had returned to the capital, he realized that things were bad. When Steward Li went to invite Grand Scholar Lin, he seemed to know that things were bad. He had prepared everything and waited. He did not escape. In this Grand Scholar's heart, he was still loyal to the emperor. This was why the emperor had accepted Grand Scholar Lin back then. It was because of this loyalty to the emperor. Tomorrow morning, send her to Chongqing Duke. The emperor was also tired. He sighed and ordered, let Chongqing Duke do whatever he wants. As for the person behind this, let him dig it out himself. Chapter 1271. Wang Sheng slept for an entire day and night. Wang Sheng had lost too much blood and felt cold all the time. However, his strong cultivation showed itself at this moment. Even when Wang Sheng was sleeping, it was still circulating on its own, making up for Wang Sheng's loss bit by bit. Steward Zhou and Steward Wang were the only two men allowed to enter the Grand View Garden, and they were even allowed to enter the inner residence. Of course, they could only be considered half men. The reason why Mayor allowed Steward Zhou to enter the Grand View Garden was because the Empress had come. For safety's sake, Steward Zhou's cultivation was something that even Wang Sheng and the old Taoist could not stop praising. If she did not let him watch over him now, when would he be able to use it? Steward Zhou was naturally happy to do so. He was not like the third prince who could not see the situation clearly. How could the three high priests not know how terrifying Mei-er's current assets were? It would be a pity not to use such a good opportunity to curry favor with her. However, after sitting in the Grand View Garden for a short while, Steward Zhou realized that something was wrong. First, the person who should not be alive was actually alive, and her vitality was getting stronger and stronger. Before coming, Steward Zhou had received the news that everyone had unanimously reported that Rosa was dead for sure. Her injuries were too severe. With Steward Zhou's cultivation, as long as he was in the inner residence, any movement within a radius of 10 feet would definitely not be able to escape his aura. To be safe, Mayor had asked Steward Zhou to stand guard near the bedchamber in the Grand View Garden. At this distance, Steward Zhou could easily sense Mayor and Rosa's aura. Mayor was very normal. There was nothing more to say. Mayor had only been frightened during the day, and the other side did not really intend to kill Mayor. They only wanted to teach her a lesson, so Steward Zhou was not very worried about Mayor. Rosa's aura was very weak, so weak that she was on the verge of death. This was normal. With such heavy injuries, it was already amazing that he could persist until now. In Steward Zhou's mind, Rosa was already doomed. Bringing her back was just doing his best and leaving the rest to fate. However, not only did Rosa's aura not weaken, it became stronger and stronger, and her vitality became more and more vigorous. It was obvious that she was slowly recovering from the state of certain death. How was this possible? A 10th-stage realm Steward Zhou would absolutely not sense wrongly. Now, Rosa's aura had slowly recovered to the state of a seriously injured ordinary person. Although her injuries were serious, her life was definitely not in danger. If it weren't for the fact that it wasn't a convenient time, Steward Zhou would have rushed into the room where Rosa was recuperating and asked her what had happened. What surprised Steward Zhou even more was Wang Sheng. When he sensed Wang Sheng had already fallen asleep from exhaustion. He didn't know what kind of injury Wang Sheng had suffered. Anyway, Wang Sheng's aura was also very weak. But this kind of weakness wasn't weak vitality, but the kind of deficiency of qi and blood, but definitely not to the extent of death. If that was the case, it would be fine. But even if Wang Sheng's aura was weak, the breathing and heartbeat emitted from his body, as well as the movement of spiritual energy around him, clearly showed that Wang Sheng was already at the peak of the legendary realm. Just one more step, and Wang Sheng could break through the legendary realm and enter the 10th stage realm. How is this possible? Was it that easy to enter the legendary realm? The feeling that Wang Sheng gave Steward Zhou was not that of a legendary pinnacle expert in the traditional sense. Long ago, when the three great consecrators and the old consecrator fought, Wang Sheng could instantly kill them with just his aura alone. That was the real legendary realm, a realm that could be compared to the old priest. In order to reach that realm, the three great priests spent dozens of years just to disguise themselves as the 8th stage realm. In addition, they followed Wang Sheng in and out of the core of the land of Thousand Despair and experienced the influence of the super demonic beast's aura. Finally, they were guided to break through during the Great Grandmaster's concert. In total, from the 8th stage to the peak of the legendary realm, they had experienced at least a few decades. Even if they felt that the whole world's cultivation was much easier now, it shouldn't be this fast, right? Steward Zhou was extremely curious. This time, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su flew away on flying mounts. Where did they go? How could they make such incredible progress? No matter how shocked and curious he was, Steward Zhou could only stay in the Grand View Garden and obediently look after the princess of Ning Kingdom's house. All the questions could only be asked after Wang Sheng woke up and Rosa slowly recovered. After serving the emperor in the palace for many years, Steward Zhou still had this bit of experience. Who would have thought that Wang Sheng slept for a day and a night? So that in the morning, when the emperor sent Steward Li to send the third prince and a group of the third prince's teachers and advisors over, Wang Sheng was still sleeping. Mayor only heard Steward Li say that those people were sent over. She responded with an "oh" and didn't pay any more attention to it. Therefore, the third prince and the others were miserably temporarily imprisoned in Duke Chongqing's residence because no one cared about them. Rosa woke up earlier than Wang Sheng. With Wang Sheng's first aid and Wang Sheng's blood transfusion, her recovery speed was excellent. When it was almost noon the next day, Rosa woke up. She was in good condition, although there were wounds under the effect of the 6-words formula and the 7-words formula. The surface of the wounds had already scabbed and only needed to slowly recover. This kind of injury was not fatal at all. The vitality that Rose displayed made everyone who saw her dying injuries at that time all stare with their mouths agape. That afternoon, Rosa was already able to eat some porridge and swallow elixirs. If it was an ordinary person, even if they didn't die from such injuries, they would probably be in a coma for 10 days to half a month. After waiting for half a day, Wang Sheng woke up at dusk. After waking up, Wang Sheng also wolfed down a few bowls of porridge. Then, he used the 6-words formula and the 7-words formula on himself and Rosa again to help them recover. Mayer had already gathered a large pile of elixirs that could replenish qi and generate blood. She used the best ones and stuffed them into Wang Sheng and Rosa's mouths like rice. She didn't say anything after seeing the two of them eat 2 elixirs. Wang Sheng still felt a little weak, but he didn't have to worry at all in his own residence. His cultivation was strong, and the effects of the 6-words formula and the 7-words formula were also powerful. After a day and night of deep sleep, he had recovered a lot of his energy. He didn't dare to say that he could have peak combat power, but he would have no problem dealing with ordinary experts. Only then did Wang Sheng ask about the attack on May yesterday. What else could he say? The people in front of the stage and behind the scenes had already been sent to Duke Chongqing's residence by the emperor. What else could he say? However, Mayer also found out from Steward Li that the third prince was also instigated by someone, and those who instigated the third prince had already died before the emperor made his move. Their deaths were very strange. "Master, what should we do?" After Mayer explained the situation to Wang Sheng, she asked Wang Sheng, "Bring those people to the place where you were attacked and bury them." Wang Sheng replied without thinking, "Let Steward Zhou do it." Chapter 1272. There was no news from the emperor for a day and a night. That meant that the real mastermind had cut off all the clues. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be so silent. Wang Sheng didn't have any feelings for the third prince. He didn't see him before and didn't plan to see him again. Why would he bother with a dead man? He was too lazy to see him and didn't bother to ask anything. He directly buried him so that he wouldn't be bothered after seeing him. The reason why he wanted to bury him at the place where he was attacked was also a knot in Wang Sheng's heart. After all, the guards who died were protecting Mayer and Rosa. Burying them, there was a knot in his heart. Mayer had already arranged the pension for the guards. It was unprecedentedly generous, which made many of the guards in the residence feel regretful that they weren't there at that time. They believed that next time, they would still work hard. The cause and effect were also clear. The emperor wanted the third prince to learn more economic knowledge at Li Jinfang. In the end, this guy had an idea that he shouldn't have. Moreover, he really thought that he was a big deal and was instigated by a few people with ulterior motives. He wanted to touch Li Jinfang, which led to all of this. Are you sure it wasn't the emperor who wanted to touch Li Jinfang? Wang Sheng asked this question right in front of Steward Zhou. He didn't care if Steward Zhou would feel awkward or not. He just spoke bluntly. His Majesty would never use such a clumsy method. Steward Zhou smiled bitterly in reply to Wang Sheng. Thinking about it, if the emperor wanted to make a move, how could he be so stupid? He wanted to exchange the shopkeeper of Li Zhanfang? Was the emperor not full, or did he drink too much water to think of such a stupid method? As for killing someone, it was even more excessive. Would the emperor be so cruel to lay his hands on his own daughter? Even if the emperor agreed, the empress wouldn't agree, right? It wasn't His Majesty. The empress was in Changshinggong Fu. At this moment, she came forward to defend the emperor. Although she was angry with the emperor, it wasn't something the emperor did. She would still speak for the emperor. After all, they were husband and wife who had gone through thick and thin together. Moreover, the emperor didn't hesitate to send the person over to Wang Sheng. What else could she not be satisfied with? Of course, he was most satisfied with Wang Sheng's attitude. I don't care who you are. As long as you lay a finger on Mayer, you will be punished. Let's see how Wang Sheng deals with it. It was just a casual sentence. Drag him to the place where he did it and bury him. How domineering was that? This son-in-law, it was really hard to find a suitable one. When he was wronged, he didn't see Tianzi taking revenge for him. That's because some people have become stupid from reading too much. Wang Sheng listened to the third prince's confession from Mayer and stewardly, and made a direct judgment. How retarded would one have to be to believe in this world where cultivation was the most important? Of all the inferior things, studying was the best. What was it about not being in the hands of a woman? What strange tricks? These were clearly the ideas of the ancient Chinese on Earth that had already been proven to be outdated. Now, these people here, who did not even have any status themselves, were still firmly holding onto these ideas. Other than the evaluation that they had become stupid from reading too much, what else could Wang Sheng say? Duke Changsheng, there may be someone behind those dead guys. Don't you have any ideas? The empress was not a good person. She and the emperor were angry, and the third prince was also punished, but the people behind the scenes were still hiding in the dark. As a member of the royal family, the empress naturally couldn't just watch the royal family suffer losses while the major vassal states were safe and sound. Don't worry, Wang Sheng gave the empress an answer. Let me recover for 2 days first. Mayer can spread the news these few days. Just say that both of us were chased and hurt, and we don't plan to sell the map for the time being. The person who did it has been executed, but the mastermind is still at large. This makes me very unhappy. They won't admit it. The empress smiled bitterly and said, "Your method is useless. Even if they did it themselves, they won't admit it. Otherwise, who would dare to work for them in the future? Who asked them to admit that they did it themselves?" Wang Sheng laughed and said, "They can find evidence that other families are the masterminds behind the scenes, or they can directly kill a few people from other families and say that they're the masterminds behind the scenes. Who could possibly object to this? I didn't kill them." The empress didn't expect that Wang Sheng actually had this idea. Hearing this, she was stunned for a moment. But after careful consideration, she found that Wang Sheng still achieved his goal. Now who was the mastermind behind the scenes? Was it really important? The important thing was that all families had to attack each other and lose people. After thinking about this, the empress was also happy. Anyway, as long as she could make trouble for those vassal states, it was fine. As for who it was, every family had it. When the news came out, everyone was dumbfounded. When Wang Sheng killed Wang Sheng on the way back, it was a premeditated plan to capture Wang Sheng alive. But when it came to Mayer and Rosa, it was really to discuss the relationship between Wang Sheng and the royal family. It would be best if they could cause them to fall apart, and their goal would be achieved. As for killing Mayer, it was also to test the defensive strength of Liz Henlane. Basically, all parties were involved, openly or secretly. They all wanted to drive a nail into the relationship between Wang Sheng and the royal family. Their ultimate goal was definitely to seize the Li Zhen lane. At the end of the day, everything was about profit, and Liz Hen Lane was already big enough to tempt all the vassal states. But when Wang Sheng told Mayer to spread the news, everyone was dumbfounded. If Wang Sheng had already sold the map, naturally there was nothing else that attracted them, and they could do whatever they wanted. But now, they had to face this awkward situation. If they didn't give an explanation, Wang Sheng wouldn't sell the map. This was bad. Did they have to admit that it was their own people who did it? Very quickly, someone realized that Wang Sheng didn't say which family would give an explanation. He only wanted the mastermind behind the scenes. Couldn't he just give him a mastermind? The Xia family and the Qiu family had already obtained the map of the core area. Naturally, they became eyesores. The reason was too justifiable. It was to provoke Wang Sheng so that he wouldn't give the other families the map, so they planned to make a move. In less than 2 days, the heads of at least 20 masters from the Xia family and the Qiu family were sent to Duke Chongqing's residence, saying that it was the mastermind behind the scenes. Of course, these two families weren't that easy to provoke. After they realized what was going on, they immediately counterattacked. The battle between all parties lasted for half a month. In total, more than 200 masters were killed or injured. Only then did it slowly calm down. While waiting to watch the show, Wang Sheng stayed in Duke Chongqing's residence in the name of recuperating. At the same time, he took good care of Rosa. Naturally, the news that Rosa wasn't dead spread through all kinds of channels and reached the ears of many people. When everyone heard the news, they all had the same reaction. How could it be? Chapter 1273. It wasn't just the outsiders who were surprised. Even the beautiful nurses who accompanied Wang Sheng to perform the rescue surgery on Rosa at that time had been puzzled and were waiting for Wang Sheng to explain. Of course, everything was based on Wang Sheng's physical condition as the highest priority. They could wait and didn't have to worry that Wang Sheng wouldn't tell them. Wang Sheng didn't let the women wait for a long time. After seeing Rosa's injury recovery with a few beautiful nurses, he taught everyone some first aid methods for trauma. Wang Sheng didn't keep the basic things like suturing the wound, but in terms of blood transfusion, Wang Sheng could only cautiously educate everyone. If the blood type was different, in principle, normal blood transfusion could not be done. The distinction of blood types, the omnipotent blood transfusion and the omnipotent blood receiver. Wang Sheng briefly explained these. There was a reason why his blood could be used at that time, but others didn't dare to use it. Of course, what Wang Sheng explained was the simple ABO blood type, and it was impossible to talk about anything like Rh negative and positive. This was enough to surprise the women to the extreme. In this world, the alchemist was very noble, and there were a lot of doctors, but no one had ever studied it so carefully. There was so much knowledge in blood alone. What about others? Several beautiful women who were inclined to the doctor profession had already seen a vast new world under the guidance of Wang Sheng. That was a completely new direction that was completely different from the past. Rosa had lost so much blood. In the past, there was no cure at all, and she could only wait for death, but she was rescued by Wang Sheng's blood transfusion at all costs. The reason was very simple. Since Rosa had lost too much blood, then she had to make up for it. But who could have thought that it could be replenished with the blood of others? In the eyes of the women, this kind of action at the beginning was equivalent to Wang Sheng extending his own vitality to Rosa, going against heaven's will to extend life. Now that they understood this principle, everyone was suddenly enlightened. At the same time, they also had a strong interest in this kind of advanced medical skill. He believed that they would put in a lot of effort to conduct research in this area. Mayer and Rosa would definitely allocate a large sum of money to support such research. Wang Sheng didn't hide much about the mysterious syringe, but Wang Sheng himself didn't know what it was. He just told the girls that the syringe stimulates vitality. The specific composition may include some exciting drugs and secretions from certain glands in the body. Its greatest use was to stimulate the life potential of a dying person and fight for the last bit of time to save them. In short, Wang Sheng's explanation gave the girls a whole new direction and let them see an incomparably wonderful world. Perhaps because of this, there would be more modern medical knowledge in the future and more lives could be saved. Wang Sheng was happy to see this happen. For the beauties in the Grand View Garden, Wang Sheng didn't reserve anything, but for the people outside, it was completely different. Even Steward Joe could only get the answer that Wang Sheng had used a secret technique that defied the heavens to extend his life to save Rose. At this point, Mayer didn't explain much to the Empress. Even if it was her biological mother and daughter, Mayer didn't let the Empress know more. Wang Sheng and Rosa had not fully recovered, and the women didn't pester Wang Sheng. They just carefully served them and moved all kinds of tonics over. Rosa's recovery was slow, but Wang Sheng's recovery was extremely fast. It only took 3 days for the loss of blood and qi to be completely replenished. Of course, in addition to the tonics in the residence, the squid tentacles also played an important role. The seafood porridge cooked by Wang Sheng not only made Mayer feel very nourished, but it was also the best medicine to replenish qi for Rosa. The effect was so strong that Mayer was dumbfounded. 2 days later, after Rosa's injuries had completely stabilized and she had entered the recovery period, Wang Sheng accompanied Mayer and Rosa. Only then did he tell the 2 women about the process of him and the old Taoist treasure hunt overseas. He didn't talk about the strange and beautiful scenes in the ocean or the powerful sea demons. He only talked about the process of finding Zhu Xingxing's treasure, and it was already enough to make Mayer and Rosa exclaim in surprise. Who would have thought that Zhu Xingxing would have arranged it so secretly and hid the treasure so well? Old Zhu clearly didn't intend for his son to find the treasure. Wang Sheng directly said the conclusion he came to after discussing with the old Taoist. It was hidden so well that unless Zhu Xingxing had told Zhu Xiaodong about the treasure long ago, even if Zhu Xiaodong went there, he wouldn't be able to find the treasure. Wang Sheng didn't believe that Zhu Xiaodong would have the guts to dive into the water to get the treasure after seeing the sea demons of all sizes along the way. Of course, he had to share the good things with Mayer and Rosa. Other than the secret cultivation books that the old Taoist took back to classify and identify, the rest of the Bao Qing Yutang's family books, various elixirs, and other gains were all given to Mayer by Wang Sheng. Mayer was Zhu Xingxing's adopted daughter in name, so it was only right for her to inherit these things. As for the valuable things, Mayer didn't even take a look at them. No matter how valuable they were only worth a few million or tens of millions of gold coins. How could Mayer care about such a small number now? However, the pile of scrolls that recorded the various channels and business experiences of Bao Qing Yutang were treasures to Mayer. Originally, Mayer was the shopkeeper of Bao Qing Yutang. She was familiar with the operating methods of Bao Qing Yutang. Now that she had obtained these things, to put it bluntly, as long as Mayer was willing, she could build another Bao Qing Yutang anytime and anywhere. You can leave it to some of your trusted subordinates. You don't have to be a fat person who goes back on his words. When Wang Sheng saw Mayer's excited expression, he guessed her thoughts and directly persuaded her. The scale of Bao Qing Yutang is still a bit too small. If Wang Sheng's words were spread out, it was unknown how many people would cry bitterly, including Marquis Lu Wenho of the Imperial Treasure House. The scale of Bao Qing Yutang was small. Wouldn't the Imperial Treasure House, which was similar to Bao Qing Yutang, not be in the eyes of Mayer Wang Sheng? Mayer got the inheritance of Bao Qing Yutang and happily read and organized it. Wang Sheng also accompanied Rosa to recover. Rosa's injury was stable. Wang Sheng also specially looked for Qin Chun Old Taoist for a follow-up examination. However, after the follow-up examination, the 2 old Taoists looked expressionless, but the hints they gave Wang Sheng already told Wang Sheng that there was trouble. Is it very troublesome? Taking the opportunity to send the 2 old Taoists out, Wang Sheng took the 2 old Taoists to his practice room, where it was convenient to talk. Madame Rosa's injury has been stabilized. Her life is definitely not in danger. Old Taoist Qin Chun definitely said everything to Wang Sheng. After a pause, he said, "However, I'm afraid that her cultivation will be greatly affected." Chapter 1274. Her cultivation was affected? Wang Sheng didn't care at all, putting aside the fact that Rosa's cultivation had almost been destroyed because she had helped the girls in the Grand View Garden cultivate. Just to recultivate the Yongchun mantra, Rosa's cultivation had been destroyed once, and she had to recultivate. It's fine. Wang Xing didn't really care. It doesn't matter as long as she's fine and alive. At most, I can start over. It's not like I haven't experienced this before. Elder, I'm afraid she might not be able to start over this time. Qing Chun and Qing Ling both shook their heads. Wang Sheng had underestimated Rosa's injuries. How serious is it? Wang Sheng was stunned. He didn't think that Rosa's injuries were as serious as he had imagined. If her life could be saved, couldn't her cultivation recover? Her foundation is injured. Daoist Qing Chun let out a long sigh and said, simply put, his origin soul has been damaged, and his origin soul space has been destroyed. If her soul can't be healed, she won't be able to cultivate anymore. Wang Sheng furrowed his brows. Actually, not being able to cultivate was not a serious matter for Wang Sheng. However, Wang Sheng knew that Rosa was very strong. If she knew that she couldn't cultivate, she would definitely have some bad thoughts. Wang Sheng didn't want to see his woman depressed for the rest of her life. What about using various tonics to repair her remnant soul? When Wang Sheng's soul was a remnant soul, he could use elixirs like the essence nurturing pill to slowly repair it. It should be the same for Rosa's injuries, right? There's no need to be afraid of remnant souls, Qing Ling, old Taoist, answered. The problem is that her origin soul space is injured this time. If it's just her soul, it'll be easier to deal with. Wang Sheng recalled the situation when he absorbed the remnant soul. Her origin soul space seemed normal. If that was the case, the two old Taoist judgment might be correct. Rosa's cultivation would probably never recover. I'm fine. Wang Sheng nodded slightly at the two old Taoists as a way of thanking them for their help. As long as he's alive. Even if Rosa could not cultivate for the rest of her life, Wang Sheng could let Mayer take care of her for the rest of her life. This was not a big deal. Don't let Rosa know for now, Wang Sheng told the two old Taoists. Of course, the two old Taoists hurriedly agreed. Who would take the initiative to tell Rosa about such a thankless and unhappy thing? After sending Qing Ling and Qing Chen off, Wang Sheng turned around and saw Mayer standing there anxiously waiting for Wang Sheng. Others did not notice that Qing Ling and Qing Chen had something to say, but Mayer's three-tailed celestial fox's original soul was extremely sensitive. She had already noticed it. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. Wang Sheng was not afraid that Mayer would know. Rosa was seriously injured because she tried to save Mayer, so Mayer would not have any opinions about Rosa. Even if Rosa could not cultivate and became an ordinary person, Mayer would take good care of her. Mayer was still a little worried, so Wang Sheng told Mayer the truth and told Qing Ling and Qing Chen the old Taoist judgment. Hearing the result, Mayer covered her mouth and was extremely sad. Although Mayer did not have any combat power at the moment, she also understood how it was like to have her cultivation destroyed when she had a chance to reach the legendary realm in this world. Don't worry, Wang Sheng comforted Mayer. Thinking of the other thing in his storage ring, he said confidently to Mayer, trust me, I was able to bring Rose back from such a serious injury, so I will definitely be able to help her cultivate again. Okay. Mayer took a few steps forward and slowly threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms. She enjoyed the warmth of Wang Sheng's broad chest and felt the strength in Wang Sheng's body. She felt an unprecedented sense of peace. This was not because Mayer blindly trusted Wang Sheng, but because Wang Sheng had done countless incredible miracles before, which gave Mayer a sense of security that no one else could replace. Go and check it out. The Grand Abbey Dean said that there are people in the capital who have designs on the women in the Grandview Garden. After the two enjoyed the warmth of hugging each other for a while, Wang Sheng ordered Mayer, it's not just one or two people. Go and find out how they plan to target them. Make a list of all the people who want to touch Li Zhenfang and you. Originally, she was not happy because of Rosa's matter. When she heard Wang Sheng say that there were people who had designs on the women in the Grandview Garden, Mayer immediately exploded. She immediately sent people to investigate. This time, if she did not break and chop off the greedy claws of these people, who knew how many more people would reach out in the future. The investigation was actually very simple. Since those noble ladies had said these things when Lao Jun was watching Gao Jie, they naturally could not hide their secrets and had the desire to talk. As long as those beautiful supermodel coaches guided them with a few words, it was very easy to get information out of them, especially when the beautiful supermodel coaches stood in their shoes and scolded the heartless people. These women completely disregarded the fact that the supermodels in front of them were the objects of their men's sexual fantasies. As if they had found a confidant, they spoke out the words that had been bottled up in their hearts for a long time. There were also some who did not say it because they were vigilant, but the part that was said was already shocking to Mayer. There were too many people who had designs on them, and the scope was too wide. It included almost all the current forces in the capital. There were members of the royal family, important officials of the court, people who had bought mansions in the capital and lived there for a long time. Even some of the shopkeepers of big businesses in the capital had designs on them. Among them, there were cooperation, enemies, and friends. In short, almost all the forces that could be thought of were tempted. It could be said that the women in the Grand View Garden lived under the watchful eyes of countless powerful enemies every day. If they were not careful, they would fall into an irrecoverable situation. Probably only people like the third prince would believe that living in the capital was worry-free and did not need to worry about being attacked. The people of Changshan Duke's residence had never had such a childish and naive idea. Mayer had already urgently informed the women in the Grand View Garden to be careful no matter where they were. She had arranged double the number of guards to go in and out, but she could not guarantee that they would be foolproof. It's all your fault for being too beautiful. When Wang Sheng faced the women, he also said with a bitter smile. It was undeniable that after the women recultivated the Yongchun cultivation method, each of their temperament had changed as if they had been reborn. In particular, the respect and love that Wang Sheng gave them made the women's hearts belong to someone else. At the same time, they were also willing to do their best in everything that Wang Sheng designed that could bring out their beauty. It could be said that they had displayed the beauty that could be displayed in this era to the extreme. Wang Sheng was also a man. Of course, he could understand the thoughts of men. It would be strange if no one was tempted by such a large group of the most beautiful and sexiest beauties in the world who understood the thoughts of men. Duke, I have an idea. When Mayer was having a headache, the only woman in the Grand View Garden who did not belong to Wang Sheng, Tantai Yao, stood out. Chapter 1275. Do you have any good ideas? Just when Mayer was worried and didn't know what to do, Tantai Yao's words immediately became her life-saving straw. Mayer didn't ask Wang Sheng. The outcome of asking Wang Sheng would definitely be to teach those people a lesson so that they wouldn't dare to have such thoughts again. However, Mayer was also clear that even if these people temporarily lowered their heads under Wang Sheng's coercion, they wouldn't just let it go. Once something happened to Wang Sheng, the girls would definitely be the first to bear the brunt. To forge iron, you need to be strong. Tantai Yao smiled and said, as long as the sisters have the ability to protect themselves, any troubles will be solved easily. The logic was right, but the problem was that all the girls cultivated the improved Yongchun mental technique, and their real combat power was in the legend realm. But now, the average cultivation of the girls was still in the 7th stage realm, which was far from it. What should we do? Wang Sheng asked Tantai Yao. He had a feeling that Tantai Yao jumped out at this moment because she had other intentions. Yongchun mental technique can actually be mastered quickly. Tantai Yao didn't dare to neglect Wang Sheng and quickly replied, it's just that the consumption is too great, so I didn't mention it in the beginning. In the beginning, Tantai Yao only said that it would cost about 500 million gold coins for the girls to cultivate again. At that time, Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation and expanded the dream workshop for the girls to settle down, which was considered as fulfilling his promise to the girls. At that time, the income of the various clans was only a few hundred million gold coins a year. No matter how much face Tantai Yao had, she didn't dare to raise any other requests from Wang Sheng. When she mentioned a request of 500 million gold coins, she had already simplified the results of the request as much as possible. But now, Li Jun Workshop could easily reach hundreds of billions of gold coins. Tantai Yao didn't even bother to mention the number that she had mustered up the courage to raise back then. Naturally, she dared to raise more requests in front of Wang Sheng and Mei Er. Tell me about it. Wang Sheng did not reject the idea of letting the girls improve their cultivation and have the power to protect themselves. Mei Er would be safer if the girls' cultivation levels increased. This was not a bad thing. As for those who had such thoughts, Wang Sheng would definitely teach them an unprecedented lesson, but not immediately. He could do it after Tantai Yao's requests were settled. In any case, those guys are just talking. As long as Wang Sheng was around, none of them would dare to act rashly. The consumption might be 10 times higher than before. Although Tantai Yao knew that Wang Sheng and Mei Er had earned a lot of gold coins, she wasn't sure if they were willing to pay such a huge price for the women of Grandview Garden. Therefore, she spoke timidly and cautiously gave him a heads up. No problem. Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation. He didn't seem to care about the tenfold consumption. If it was just gold coins, it wouldn't be a problem at all. The newly built concert hall in the residence must have at least 4 performances at the Great Master level every month. Tantai Yao saw Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation, and the worries in her heart were swept away. She didn't keep him in suspense at this time and directly began to make requests. Before Wang Sheng left, he left Mei Er with a new design of a huge concert hall. It was the kind with 1,200 seats. It was smaller than the 5 grand theaters that were being built outside, but it was enough for the internal use of Chongqing Duke Mansion. The 5 grand theaters that were being built in the capital were all enlarged from the original concert hall. The 4 sides of the stage were all thousands of seats, and the grand theater with a total of 5,000 seats was almost completed. The first performance would begin soon. The 5 grand theaters had more than 20,000 seats. As long as there were enough bands, there would be performances every day. The Royal Academy of Arts was now recruiting students, and it trained thousands of ordinary musicians every term. It was unknown how many people who didn't have much hope in practicing array and alchemy turned to practicing the new profession of musician. The Grand Concert Hall of Chongqing Duke Mansion had been completed, and it was many times more exquisite than the ones outside. What a joke. There were at least 10 great masters among the construction workers, and the rest were all disciples of great masters. There were also hundreds of great masters. How do the ones outside compare? Not to mention the great masters of array, the highest level great array master in the Royal Academy of Arts, helped to arrange the array. Others didn't have the qualifications to invite them. The cost of this grand concert hall alone, according to the market price, had already exceeded more than 200 million gold coins. Tantai Yao didn't mention the cost at first. Even the emperor and the major feudal lords couldn't invite the great master level band to perform, except for Wang Sheng. According to the cost of their performance, each seat now cost 200,000 gold coins. 1,200 seats meant 240 million gold coins. The key wasn't the gold coins, but whether others could do it except for Wang Sheng. This was the most expensive part. Yes, Tantai Yao thought that Wang Sheng would consider it, but she didn't expect Wang Sheng to nod without hesitation. It made Tantai Yao overjoyed. It made all the girls in the Grandview Garden want to squeeze into Wang Sheng's arms to thank him. Except for the Great Master Level Band, the sisters who study music can perform normally. Wang Sheng immediately said, "In addition, I can let the Royal Symphony Orchestra come to our house to perform 10 times. The Royal Symphony Orchestra was brought up by Master Yu. Although it wasn't as powerful as the Great Master Level Band, it was second to none other than the Great Master Level Band. Listening to their performance also had a lot of benefits, but it wasn't as profound as the Great Master Level Band. In addition to the sisters' performance, it could be said that everyone's cultivation was naturally more efficient than those without the assistance of music. It was fine for the sisters, but no matter if it was the Great Master Level Band or the Royal Symphony Orchestra, Wang Sheng couldn't let them perform for free. This cost would normally cost more than 1 billion gold coins a month. Also, the sisters must have the meat of high-grade demonic beasts in their daily menu. Tantai Yao suppressed her excitement and made a second request. Yes. Wang Sheng agreed without hesitation and asked, "What level of demonic beast meat do you want? The higher, the better." Tantai Yao quickly replied, "The Yongchun mantra is different. Ordinary people can't absorb much spirit chi from high-grade demonic beast meat, but those who cultivate the Yongchun mantra can. It's best if it's legend rank demonic beast meat. If it's not possible, it must be one level higher than the sisters." "No problem." Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation again. "Legend rank or higher demonic beast meat, right?" "Yes." Chapter 1276. Not only Tantai Yao, but even Mayer was shocked by Wang Sheng's reply. What was the meat of a higher-level demonic beast than the legendary realm? Now, in the entire kingdom, all the demon beasts that had surpassed the legendary realm were all in the core of the ground of Thousand Extremes. Moreover, they were restricted by the super array formation and couldn't come out. More importantly, the super demon beasts in the core of the ground of Thousand Extremes were all humanoid demon beasts. What kind of concept was this? Mayer and Tantai Yao were shocked and didn't know how to respond to Wang Sheng's words. "Don't worry, I have a way." Wang Sheng gave Mayer a reassuring look and turned to Tantai Yao. "What other requests do you have?" "The usual tonics are enough." Tantai Yao's heart palpitated when she heard Wang Sheng's words. If they really did as Wang Sheng promised, the 600 sisters would consume close to 2 billion gold coins a month. Just thinking about it was scary. The meat of an 8-stage demonic beast was already more than 1,000 gold coins a caddy. One could imagine how expensive the meat of a legendary realm demonic beast was. It was more than 100 times more expensive. The most terrifying thing was that each of the 600 sisters would need at least a caddy of meat a day. In a day, just eating meat alone would cost 60 to 70 million gold coins. This was only the meat of a legendary realm demonic beast. Tantai Yao didn't dare to think about the higher-level demonic beast meat that Wang Sheng mentioned. If he really did it, the 600 sisters of the Grandview Garden would eat food made of gold every day, wouldn't it? "I need a few array grandmasters to build an array." Since she had already asked for a few billion gold coins, Tantai Yao wasn't as apprehensive when she mentioned it again. "A special array formation that can cover everyone's cultivation. The materials for the array will also be consumed." "Sure." Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation. Wang Sheng was still able to find a few grandmasters in the field of arrays. As for the materials for the array, he would buy them. He had already spent billions of gold coins. Why would he care about the consumption of another array? "When everything is ready, we will need to concentrate on cultivating for a period of time." Tantai Yao spoke again. "I will use the secret technique of Triumph Palace to help the sisters improve. However, I'm afraid that Dream Workshop will have to stop doing business during this period of time. This will cause great losses to the Duke and the Princess." "It's all right," Wang Sheng replied calmly. "It's just a small income of 100 million gold coins. We can earn it back after we open for business." Wang Sheng readily agreed to all of Tantai Yao's requests. This made Tantai Yao feel a sense of excitement, as if she was a scholar who would die for a bosom friend. If Triumph Palace had such trust and support for Tantai Yao, how could she not care about leaving Triumph Palace? Not to mention Victorious Return Palace. Even if it was replaced by any of the major vassals, they wouldn't be able to support him so strongly. Of course, they didn't have the wealth or the courage to do so. The only ones who could do it were the man and woman in front of them, Wang Sheng and Mayer. One last request. Tantai Yao, who was a little afraid after being readily agreed to by Wang Sheng, felt a little guilty when she made her last request. "What?" Wang Sheng asked calmly. "Rosa, who is in good condition." Tantai Yao didn't know about the recovery of Rosa's injuries, but she knew that Rosa's life was definitely saved. Therefore, she quickly said her last request. "Duke, you should know what the sisters rely on for cultivation. It's either Rosa." Tantai Yao paused and took a deep breath before saying to Wang Sheng, "Or it's you, Duke." The requirement for cultivating the modified Yongchun cultivation technique was that the heart of the cultivator must be loyal to one person until death. Only then could one cultivate. Wang Xing didn't accept the women at that time, so in the end, Rosa could only replace them. Although it was Rosa who made love with the women. In fact, everyone knew that the women's hearts could only belong to Wang Sheng. It was just that no one said it, and everyone had a tacit understanding. Compared to the other conditions, the last condition should be the simplest in Tantai Yao's heart, because she felt that as long as the best medicine was used, Rosa's recovery was just a matter of time. It was really just a matter of time. Would Duke Chongqing's residents be afraid of not having good medicine? What's more, there were so many old Taoists and Wang Sheng who could use the 9 words incantation to help her recover. But when Meyer heard this condition, her expression changed greatly. Rosa's injury was fine, but the problem was that Rosa's soul space was also destroyed, and her cultivation foundation was ruined. Could it be that for the safety of the women, Wang Sheng had to sacrifice himself? Although the women had accompanied Meyer, Rosa, and Wang Sheng to worship heaven and earth, according to Meyer and Rosa's words, they were Wang Sheng's maidservants, so sleeping with Wang Sheng shouldn't be a problem. But when she thought of the scene of so many sisters and Wang Sheng's entanglement, Meyer had an indescribable sadness in her heart. Was this jealousy? But obviously, the sisters couldn't pose a threat to Meyer at all. Meyer's gaze turned to Wang Sheng, waiting for Wang Sheng's answer. Wang Sheng was only slightly surprised, and then he seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, he nodded again. Rosa's injury may need around 10 days to recover to the point where she can move normally. Next, I will need another 10 days for her to recover. That was 20 days. Tantai Yao could completely understand this. With such heavy injuries, to be able to recover to normal cultivation in 20 days, this recovery speed was absolutely shocking. What else could she be dissatisfied with? Moreover, finding high-level demonic beast meat in advance, communicating with the Grand Master Orchestra, the Royal Symphony Orchestra, and those array great masters in advance, buying various materials, including Tantai Yao's own preparations. All of these required time. Being able to prepare in 20 days was already fast enough. Tantai Yao thought that it would take at least 2 months. After we start, it will probably take about 1.5 months. With Wang Sheng's guarantee, Tantai Yao seemed to be stimulated to do things freely. Just the trust that was worth billions of gold coins made her feel that she had surpassed more than 99% of the people in this world. Even her voice was a little excited. Raising 2 realms to the legendary realm in 1.5 months isn't a little fast. It's not good for cultivation. Wang Sheng frowned. Wasn't this a little too fast? Wang Sheng had just discussed the cultivation foundation with the old Taoist. It wasn't a good thing to be too fast. Duke, you don't have to worry about this. Tantai Yao laughed. I now completely believe that the Duke truly cares for the sisters. Don't worry, Duke. The cultivation method of a Yongchun mantra is special. The first 8 realms have no combat power at all. In fact, it is constantly building the foundation for the legendary realm. With so many auxiliary techniques, the situation that Duke is worried about will definitely not happen. Chapter 1277. Mayor, send someone to the Laojun Temple and ask the old Taoist to come over. Wang Sheng got Tantai Yao's guarantee and nodded. He turned to Mei and instructed, ask someone to tell the old Taoist Rosa's current situation. Tell him that I need that thing, and ask him to come over and help. Wang Sheng's words were inexplicable. Mei didn't know what thing to use, but she still nodded obediently and immediately sent someone to invite him. Tantai Yao would give a list of things to buy to Mei, and Mei would immediately give the order. By the way, there's no need to buy demonic beast meat. Wang Sheng reminded Mei and Tantai Yao didn't know why, but since Wang Sheng said so, they naturally wouldn't ask. Except for the old Taoist Ling Su, no one else knew how many squid tentacles they brought back this time. When they set off, the 2 of them brought the meat of 4 flying demonic beasts with them for half a year. A flying demonic beast was a behemoth that was several feet long. They wouldn't be full without a few hundred kilograms of meat every day. The four flying demonic beasts probably ate more than 1,000 kilograms in a day. After discovering that the super sperm whale and the super king squid perished together, the first thing the two did was to throw out all the flying demonic beast meat in the storage ring, and then put away the best super demonic beast meat while it was still fresh. The skin of the sperm whale was the best, but under the skin was whale fat that was tens of meters thick. Pure fat mixed with industrial fat was not very tasty. On the contrary, the super king squid was pure seafood in Wang Sheng's mouth. It was a good thing that could be eaten from the inside out. The two of them stuffed the storage ring full and didn't stand on ceremony at all. Even so, they couldn't even get a squid tentacle. At best, they only dug out a small part of it. Later, the four flying demonic beasts ate all the food that they couldn't stuff into their storage rings, so they put on the backs of the flying demonic beasts. The four flying demonic beasts flew back and forth several times, and the amount of food they carried was several tens of thousands of kilograms. The flying demonic beasts did eat quite a lot, but it was definitely not a lot. After eating, they still had to digest and absorb the powerful spiritual energy contained in the food. Later on, they even advanced, so their appetite was at least 10 times less than usual. It couldn't be helped. Just the spiritual energy inside was enough for them to digest and absorb for many days. By the time he returned, Wang Sheng's storage ring had enough squid tentacles to last a year or even longer, according to the consumption of 600 to 700 kilograms per day. Tantai Yao only needed 1.5 months of consumption, which was enough. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried about the nutritional balance, Wang Sheng would have let his sisters eat the squid tentacles as if they were meals. Legendary realm demon beasts were enough for the sisters to use, but they didn't know how many times more effective these squid tentacles could be. However, it was definitely good for the girls, and Wang Sheng wouldn't be reluctant to give up these things. He first took out a large piece and gave it to Mei and Tantai Yao. Mei could tell at a glance that this was the seafood that she often ate recently, so she didn't care much about it. She mainly gave it to Tantai Yao. You try to see if this is useful first. This was what Wang Sheng said to Tantai Yao. After all, she was the most qualified person to make a judgment. Wang Sheng wasn't a person who took it for granted. If he felt that it would work, then it would work. He definitely had to test it. What kind of meat is this? Tantai Yao was stunned. She didn't expect Wang Sheng to carry demon beast meat with him, but this wasn't surprising. Wang Sheng often went out. It would be strange if he didn't have meat with him. After asking, she felt that it wasn't enough, so she asked again, "What grade is it?" That was because the Super King Cuttlefish had already surpassed everyone's understanding. After a certain level, it would be difficult for outsiders to tell the grade of the demon beast from its appearance. Just like Wang Sheng, he was now at the peak of the legendary realm, but his appearance seemed to have returned to its original state. There was not the slightest trace of aura leaking out. Those who were not familiar with him would not be able to tell Wang Sheng's cultivation level. The squid tentacles were the same. It was beyond Tantai Yao's understanding, but there was no leakage of aura, so Tantai Yao couldn't judge it. However, she firmly believed that Wang Sheng wouldn't take out ordinary things for her, so she asked this question. Mei was actually very curious. She had eaten it before, and it was delicious. After eating it, she felt very comfortable. However, Mei wasn't a person who cultivated the Yongshan mantra. She only felt that it was good for her body. She could absorb a part of it, but she couldn't completely absorb the spiritual energy in it. It couldn't be helped. The evolutionary direction of humans and demon beasts were different. They had different advantages in this aspect. They couldn't directly absorb other demon beasts' spiritual energy like demon beasts. However, humans had enough intelligence and wisdom. For example, they invented a cultivation technique like the Yongshan mantra to help them achieve their goals. This is the meat of a super sea demon. I call it the king cuttlefish. It's from one of its tentacles. At this point, Wang Sheng had nothing to hide. He told the truth to Mei and Tantai Yao. If it's grade, it's at least in the 13th realm. However, both the old Taoist and I think it should be in the 14th realm. Clatter. Tantai Yao's hand loosened, and the meat fell on the table. Tantai Yao only reacted when she heard the sound. She quickly lowered her head and picked it up. Fortunately, the table was very clean. There was no dirt on the meat, so it wouldn't affect her eating. Of course, even if there was some dirt, Tantai Yao wouldn't care. She just needed to wash it a little. This was the meat of a 14th realm demon beast. How was that possible? However, she wouldn't doubt Wang Sheng's words. In addition, there was also the old Taoist Ling Su. His words didn't need to be doubted. He was the most senior and most qualified person in Taoism. Would he lie? Would he make a wrong judgment? If the two of them said it was the 14th realm, then it must be the 14th realm. Try the effect first. If it's suitable, I have enough meat for the sisters to eat for a year. Wang Sheng told Tantai Yao, don't worry about not having enough. Phew! Tantai Yao let out a long sigh. She thought she had seen a lot in the capital city. Only now did she realize that she was just a frog at the bottom of a well. Was there really a 14th realm demon beast in this world? The legendary realm isn't the peak. Wang Sheng seemed to have guessed what Tantai Yao was thinking. He gave her some advice. There are already people who have broken through the legendary realm and entered a higher realm. I've seen 6 of them, and you know 5 of them. So, try it and see if the Yongchun mantra can break through the legendary realm and enter a higher realm. Have confidence. Really? After Tantai Yao recovered from the shock, she realized that she knew 5 of the people who had broken through the realm that Wang Sheng mentioned. She couldn't help but ask in surprise. Believe me, everyone can. Wang Sheng nodded. You know the 3 imperial consecrators, the old Taoist, and the Grand Abbey Dean. There's also Uncle Li in Worry-Free City. They're all the same. In the future, you could do it too. Chapter 1278. Tantai Yao was so surprised that she almost swayed. In this aspect, Mei Er's performance was slightly better. Of course, this was also because Wang Sheng had given her pointers, and she knew the cultivation of the old Taoist and the 3 consecrators earlier than Tantai Yao. Tantai Yao originally wanted to let the kitchen cook it and try it out. But since she knew that it was the meat of a 14-stage realm super demonic beast, she didn't dare to waste it. He took out a small knife from his body and cut a small piece of the meat. Even with Tantai Yao's Yongchun cultivation method and legend realm cultivation, she only managed to cut a little bit after several cuts. Such tenacity was definitely beyond the legend realm. The way to eat sashimi is not bad. Wang Sheng also made a small plate of sauce for Tantai Yao to eat. Anyway, he brought the sauce with him, so it was very convenient. At the same time, he didn't forget to comment that Tantai Yao's way of eating was seafood sashimi. Tantai Yao didn't stand on ceremony. She dipped the meat in the sauce that Wang Sheng had prepared and sent a piece of meat into her mouth. After chewing for a long time, she didn't forget to praise the taste. Then, Tantai Yao began to cultivate the Yongchun cultivation method in front of Wang Sheng and Mei. In just a moment, Tantai Yao's face turned red and her body swayed slightly. After a while, she returned to normal and slowly opened her eyes. What a powerful spiritual energy. Tantai Yao had a lingering fear and smiled bitterly. I'm afraid it's not bad for the sisters to digest 1 tael a day. Let's wait until they reach the legend realm to digest 500 grams. Humans weren't demonic beasts. Even if there were cultivation methods to help them digest and absorb spiritual energy, it was impossible to be like demonic beasts. First of all, the difference in body size was many times. However, Tantai Yao was sure that this was definitely the super demonic beast of at least the 13th-stage realm, and it was very likely to be the meat of the 14th-stage realm that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist mentioned. With the demonic beast meat, it wouldn't be a dream for the sisters to advance in a short period of time. Even Tantai Yao suddenly seemed to see the path ahead. Demon beasts could break through to the legendary realm, and there were also people who had broken through to the legendary realm. Moreover, it was someone he knew, so why couldn't he do the same? At this time, Tantai Yao suddenly thought of the sensational case of Wang Sheng selling the method to upgrade his source spirit. In any case, Tantai Yao was considered a high-ranking member of the victorious Return Palace. Naturally, she would know the details of what had happened in the past. Thinking back, it turned out that everyone thought that Wang Sheng was joking when he said that he could rely on his confidence to level up. Now, Tantai Yao finally understood that it wasn't. The part that everyone thought was the truth was the truth. Thank you for your guidance, Duke. Tantai Yao stood up and bowed deeply to Wang Sheng respectfully. This was the true grace of guidance, the kind that could not be repaid even if one's body was torn to pieces. If Tantai Yao hadn't already had someone in her heart, she might have fallen in love with Wang Sheng a long time ago. Tantai Yao left with shock, surprise, and gratitude. She had to make a list of the things that she needed to buy as soon as possible, leaving only Mei Er and Wang Sheng together. What kind of demonic beast is it? It's at the 14th stage? Mei Er was still immersed in the ranks of super demonic beasts. Even if she already knew that humans could break through to the legendary realm, the 14th stage still shocked her. Let's go to Rose's side. I will tell you all together. Wang Sheng smiled and hugged Mei Er's slender waist. Mei Er directly hugged Wang Sheng's neck and let Wang Sheng hug her horizontally. She enjoyed Wang Sheng's strong arms all the way to Rose's side. Rose's recovery speed was amazing. She could now sit against the soft cushion, and the pain in her body had basically disappeared. She only needed to wait for her recovery. However, Rosa didn't seem to be in a good mood now. This was already the 5th day after Wang Sheng's surgery. Although she still couldn't walk normally, Rosa seemed to be vaguely aware of the abnormality in her body. "Greetings, Master." "Greetings, Madam." Seeing Wang Sheng carrying Mei Er in, Rosa forced a smile on her face. She knew what price Wang Sheng had paid to save her. Even if she felt uncomfortable, she didn't want Wang Sheng to worry about her. "All right, Rosa." Mei Er jumped down from Wang Sheng's arms and complained to Rosa, "You haven't recovered from your injury. Don't talk about these empty formalities." Wang Sheng also sat down by Rosa's bed. He first gave Rosa a 6-word formula. Then he grabbed Rosa's hand and checked it with his spiritual power. Rosa's internal injuries were basically at the point of recovery, and the external injuries were slowly recovering. The recovery was very good, and Wang Sheng was very satisfied. Did you find that you can't mobilize the soul space? You can't cultivate, and you can't rely on your own strength to recover? Wang Sheng smiled and asked Rosa, "You were worried about these things just now, right? I've let Master see a joke." Rosa was stunned when she heard it. Looking at the smile on Wang Sheng's face, she knew that she couldn't hide it from Wang Sheng. She could only bow her head and apologize to Wang Sheng. "Don't worry. Your injury will almost recover in 10 days. Wang Sheng clearly told Rosa 10 days. Then, he told her what he had just said to Tantai Yao. Hearing that Tantai Yao had a way to quickly improve the cultivation of her sisters, Rosa was also very happy. But when she heard the conditions that Tantai Yao proposed, even though Rosa was used to seeing big money, she couldn't help but be alarmed that billions of gold coins were going to be used on her sisters. After that, when she heard that there would be a complete Rosa, even though Rosa had already bowed to Wang Sheng countless times, she still blushed shyly and didn't dare to look at Wang Sheng. "I know about your injury." Wang Sheng thought about it and felt that it was better to tell the truth to Rosa. "According to the thoughts of ordinary people, your cultivation has already been crippled. The origin soul space is destroyed, and the origin soul is destroyed. There is no possibility of recovery." At this point, Rosa's expression was obviously sad, and her eyes were slightly filled with tears. Mayer saw that Rosa was sad, and she was so angry that she almost punched Wang Sheng. However, that is only in the eyes of ordinary people. Wang Sheng followed up with a "but," which made Rosa's tears disappear. She looked at Wang Sheng expectantly, waiting for him to give her a big surprise. This time, the old Taoist and I went out to relax and look for Zhu Xingxing's hidden treasures. We also experienced some very magical things. In order to give Rosa confidence, Wang Sheng said these words in a very mysterious tone. "There are some experiences. If you know, you will understand that sometimes the damage of the origin soul space is not impossible to repair. Perhaps this is a big opportunity for you. Chapter 1279. The curiosity of the two girls was completely piqued. Just as Mayer was about to urge Wang Sheng to tell her, Wang Sheng opened his mouth with a grin. He had already told them about the process of searching for Zhu Xingxing's treasure. Rosa and Mayer had actually already heard about it, so it was not something new. However, what Wang Sheng did not tell them was what really piqued their curiosity. Hundreds of millions of fish, countless powerful sea demons, terrifying tentacles that were hundreds of meters long. Everything made the two girls intoxicated. Even old Taoist Ling Su was addicted to the beauty of the sea, not to mention the two girls who were naturally fond of romantic beauty. From a moment Wang Sheng started to talk about the beautiful scenery of the sea, the two girls' little mouths could not close. Two pairs of beautiful eyes sparkled with anticipation, curiosity, and imagination, as if they were wandering on the beautiful sea with Wang Sheng. I must go to the sea to have a look. Mei seemed to be on the sea, her little mouth murmuring as if she was in a dream. Rosa, who was beside her, was not much better. They could not imagine how spectacular it would be to be surrounded by hundreds of millions of fifth-degree fish and then be chased by a large group of violent demon beasts. They could not imagine how beautiful and magical the colorful world under the sea was. Finally, they arrived at the climax. The scene of the incomparable battle between the two super demon beasts made the two girls intoxicated. The aura dozens of miles away was so terrifying that even an expert like old Taoist Ling Su did not dare to go near it, which made the two girls' imagination run wild. In any case, the two girls could not imagine what kind of scene it was. At this time, Wang Sheng took out his personal combat terminal as if he was performing a magic trick. In front of the two girls, he tapped on it a few times. Thus, the ordinary-looking screen instantly flashed with bright colors. The shoal of fish was so large that the two of them simply couldn't believe their eyes. In the azure sea, they formed a huge mass of fish that spanned dozens of miles. There were flocks of legendary realm seabirds and all kinds of terrifying sea demons. Then, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist jumped into the sea from the sky and saw the scene from Wang Sheng's perspective. The clear sea water, countless crowded fish, and the cruel scene of seabirds and sea demons hunting crazily were presented in front of the two girls. Other than in front of the old Taoist, this was the first time that Wang Sheng took out his personal combat terminal. Be it Mei or Rosa, they were all people that Wang Sheng absolutely trusted, so he was not afraid to let them see it. But Tantai Yao did not have such benefits. That was the difference. The two girls were already attracted by the beautiful scenery in the ocean, which was completely different from the scenery on land. There were all kinds of magical sea demons that they had never seen before, which made the two girls feel intoxicated. It was not until they finished watching the hunting video in the sea that the two girls realized what they were seeing. Mayer held the personal combat terminal and could not believe her eyes. What was inside that could make me see such a scene? What is this? Mayer carefully held the combat terminal in her hand. She had already flipped it around a few times, but she still could not understand why there was such a vivid scene in it. After thinking about it for a long time, she carefully asked Wang Sheng, "It's a gadget that can record what you see." Wang Sheng smiled and did not explain in detail. He simply described it. "Of course, I'm the only one who has this thing for now. It is not easy to make. Even if there are so many grandmasters now, it is impossible to make it. When will it be possible to make it?" Mayer had already seen another glittering path in front of her. It was the kind that was cast with gold. If this thing was taken out and put on the market, how much could it be sold for? How many people would go bankrupt to buy it? Don't think about it for now. Wang Sheng smiled and shook his head. He took the personal combat terminal and began to play the next video. At the same time, he did not forget to answer. If I were to devote myself to the process of making this thing from now on, teaching students, researching the principles behind it, and slowly making the finished product, it would probably take 1 to 200 years. In this ancient world, there was no research on advanced mathematics, physics, or chemistry. From the simplest optics and electromagnetism to the final product, even with Wang Sheng's guidance, it would probably take them 2 centuries of scientific research before Wang Sheng came to this world. Was this meaningful? At the very least, it was meaningless to Wang Sheng at the moment. Therefore, Wang Sheng directly told the 2 girls not to think about it. Originally, the 2 girls wanted to say something, but they were immediately attracted by the second video on the screen. They could not move their eyes and attention away. The second video was, of course, an unparalleled battle between 2 super big guys. The battle between the super sperm whale, which was more than a kilometer long, and the super king squid, which was even longer, stirred up a storm within a radius of 100 miles. The fierce battle and the crazy scene almost made the 2 girls scream out loud. A battle of this level, if they were not watching it in person, would not be able to imagine it. There were many things in the sea that could not be more mysterious to people, not to mention this kind of super battle that could only be seen in the deep sea. Just the size of these 2 big guys was enough to kill all the terrestrial creatures in this world. The powerful super demon beasts in the land of despair were simply insignificant dust particles in front of these 2 big guys. They were juniors that could be easily crushed by them in the sea. Not to mention seeing the battle between these 2 big guys, just seeing their silhouettes was enough to boast for the rest of their lives. But now, thanks to Wang Sheng, with the help of the advanced technology on Earth, the 2 girls could see the silhouettes of the super demon beasts that should be thousands of miles away without leaving their homes. The military combat terminal could be on standby for a long time, and Wang Sheng often left it in a fully charged state, so the recording time was very long. The 2 girls squeezed in front of a small screen. They did not care about their weird posture, completely forgetting the passage of time. If it were not for Wang Sheng's concern for Rosa's injury and timely reminder, the 2 girls might not have left this small screen. Even so, when they saw Wang Sheng put away the combat terminal, the 2 girls still had a reluctant look in their eyes, as if they could see through the storage ring and see the screen inside. There's no hurry. We'll see when Rosa's injury gets better. Wang Sheng smiled and warned the 2 girls, I'm showing you this to tell you that there are still many miracles in this world. And I, your master, am a person who can create miracles. Rosa, when your injury gets better, I'll show you another miracle. Chapter 1280. If it was someone else who said this, Rosa would probably slap him in the face. What kind of swindler dared to show off in front of Sister Rosa? Not to mention that she was now Madame Rosa, who was in charge of a part of Changshan Gongfu's business. Even if it was Sister Rosa in Carefree City back then, no one dared to fool her like this. But these words were said by Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng was now Rosa's master, and also Changshan Gongfu. Moreover, he was also a mysterious expert who had been creating miracles for many years. Not to mention the faraway scenes, just the scenery at the bottom of the sea and the earth-shattering battle between the 2 super demonic beasts was enough to give Rosa unshakable confidence. Master, thank you. Rosa almost cried tears of joy. Lying in Wang Sheng's embrace, she didn't know how to express her gratitude to her master. If it wasn't for the fact that her injuries had not completely healed, perhaps Mei-er would immediately throw herself into Wang Sheng's arms and let him enjoy a top-grade gentle romance. Be good and rest well. Wait for me to give you a surprise. It took a while for Wang Sheng to appease Rosa. Finally, she no longer had that kind of depression and despair, only anticipation. Mei-er seemed to still be immersed in that terrifying super battle. Wang Sheng could not help but laugh out loud when he saw her holding the combat terminal and staring intently at it all by herself. Hurry up and get to work. Wang Sheng snatched the combat terminal and smiled at Mei. He then lightly slapped Mei-er's little butt, urging her to get to work. Oh, Mei-er covered the place where Wang Sheng slapped her. Pouting, she looked like a modern girl who had her phone snatched away and went to work unwillingly. Wang Sheng also went to work, but he didn't need to do hard work. He only needed to do favors to fine people. The Grandmaster Orchestra, the Array Grandmaster Orchestra, and the Royal Symphony Orchestra all required Wang Sheng's presence. Relatively speaking, it was easy to find a band, but it was necessary to find a formation grandmaster first. Setting up an array formation also required time. By finding an array formation grandmaster in advance and setting up the array formation in advance, Tantai Yao would have a higher chance of success. Wang Sheng quickly found the two great grandmasters in charge of musical formations at the Royal Academy of Arts. When he told them, the two great grandmasters agreed without a second thought. What a joke! When did he not earn a lot of money when he worked for Changsheng? Ever since they started working together, they had never met a partner who was so respectful to them. Not only were they treated well, their gold coins were 20% higher than the market price outside, and they were using the best items. To put it bluntly, working for Changsheng Gong, no matter how tiring it was also a comfortable job. What's more, Duke Changsheng always had some wonderful ideas that could give them all kinds of inspiration. Otherwise, how did they get the great grandmaster of musical formations? Originally, between the two of them, one was a great grandmaster, and the other was only a great grandmaster. Even the one who was a great grandmaster was just an ordinary great grandmaster. Now, in the field of musical formations, there was no one more authoritative than them. In addition to the two of them, as soon as they heard that Wang Sheng wanted to find a few formation grandmasters to work together, the two did not need Wang Sheng to ask. They directly volunteered and patted their chest to promise that they would help find a few formation grandmasters they had a good relationship with. They would never delay Changsheng Gong's business. If Duke Changsheng personally asked for help, would he be afraid of not being able to do it? How many great grandmasters of Linglong Pavilion stared at Changsheng Gong's mansion every day, looking forward to the day when Changsheng Gong asked them for help. As long as Wang Sheng spoke, it meant that a certain great grandmaster might be famous all over the world. This point had been verified by over 100 great grandmasters. As long as it was someone who worked for Wang Sheng, there was no one who was not the creator of something. That was many times more powerful than a mere great grandmaster title. Who didn't have a few good friends? The two music formation grandmasters immediately saw this opportunity and took the initiative to take the job of inviting people. Wang Sheng nodded and only gave a request, which was to have real skills. This time, he wanted to arrange a large formation that could accommodate 600 or 700 people, so there couldn't be any mistakes. The two music grandmasters patted their chests and asked Duke Changsheng to rest assured. If Duke Changsheng's important matter was delayed, they were willing to give up their heads. With the assurance of the two, Wang Sheng also saved a lot of trouble. After all, it was easier to communicate and find people in the same field. It was much easier than asking Wang Sheng to find people one by one. Now, Wang Sheng only needed to solve the great grandmaster orchestra. But before that, Wang Sheng first went to the Royal Symphony Orchestra. The Royal Symphony Orchestra was also training in the Royal Academy of Arts, and their members even had teaching tasks. When Wang Sheng came to book a performance time, the young disciple of Master Yu, who was already the chief conductor of the Royal Symphony Orchestra, nodded immediately. If it weren't for Wang Sheng, would the musicians of the Royal Symphony Orchestra have such a good life now? What good things are they thinking? Weren't they still being ordered around and performing at other people's banquets to liven things up? At the end of the day, they would just be great grandmasters who lived in seclusion in the mountains like Master Yu and the others. How could they be as good as they were now? Several members of the orchestra present also nodded without hesitation. Not to mention performing for Duke Changsheng's residence for more than a month. Even if it was half a year or a year, so what? What's more, Duke Changsheng said that if they worked hard to perform, the pay would be increased by 50%. Performing for anyone else was not a performance. Could others appreciate it more than Duke Changsheng? Or could Duke Changsheng pay more directly? The Royal Symphony Orchestra was also settled, and all that was left was the Great Grandmaster Orchestra. They were not in the Royal Academy of Arts. Although they also had teaching tasks, most of the time they were happy to practice in the fully functional small theater specially prepared for them by Duke Changsheng. It was not that easy to become a great grandmaster. At least, they had never given up on the simple requirement of never leaving their fists and never relaxing their requirements. They, who were already great grandmasters, never stopped practicing for a day, never relaxed their requirements, and never put down their pursuit of music. This was the most fundamental and direct reason why they could become great grandmasters in music. There was no other reason. Wang Sheng deliberately put them last, because Wang Sheng knew that it was impossible to move these great grandmasters with gold coins. Since performing a few times in the Royal Grand Theater in Beijing, they had never been short of gold coins. The only thing that could affect them was a higher pursuit of music, which ordinary people could not give them. Fortunately, Wang Sheng could. There were countless classic pieces of music on earth. Wang Sheng's mind was filled with an endless stream of good stuff. It was enough to make any grandmaster musician drool. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.